Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2021 Lake Nona Impact Forum Virtual Edition. And now, please welcome Gloria Caulfield, the Vice President of Strategic Alliances for Tavistock, the Executive Director of the Lake Nona Institute, and the founder and creative force behind the Lake Nona Impact Forum. And Dr. Richard Carmona, the 17th Surgeon General of the United States and Chief of Health Innovations, Canyon Ranch, and Chairman, Lake Nona Impact Forum Advisory Board. And Michelle Williams, Dean of Faculty, Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, and Co-Chair, Lake Nona Impact Forum Advisory Board.
Welcome to the first virtual edition of the Lake Nona Impact Forum. For our prior Impact Forum guests, on behalf of Richard Carmona, Michelle Williams, and myself, we are so happy to have you back. And of course, we really wish that we were all together in person. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, we're so pleased to be able to have you here with us today and to welcome you to our collaborative. So typically the Impact Forum is an invitation-only event, and we are grateful today for the support we've received from Microsoft so we can open this up and give the world the opportunity to hear thought-provoking conversations from experts who are obsessed with innovation and urgently acting to make a difference. Business leaders, prolific entrepreneurs, tech titans, academic thought leaders, public health experts, and even a world-renowned musical artist. See, the last time we were all together at the Impact Forum, it was at the end of February of 2020, directly before the pandemic, which radically impacted our lives. For those of you that were there, you know exactly what I mean. It was very interesting, uncanny timing. Today, we want to examine the innovations that have shifted our world during the past year. Some say even leapfrogging the innovation life cycle by nearly a decade or more because of the need to move urgently and decisively during the pandemic. And this is all focused around this year's theme, health innovation in the new reality. So Richard, Michelle, and I have been very busy curating the same extraordinary caliber of thought leaders that have been the cornerstone of our in-person event. But before I turn this over, I would like to acknowledge our partners that have also contributed to this program. The Chopra Foundation, Verizon, Harvard T. Chan School of Public Health, KPMG, OneMind, Guidewell Innovation, and of course, Fortune Media. Thank you for your energy, your support, and your passion. So Dr. Carmona, hello there, how are you?
Good, Gloria, nice to see you.
So what are your thoughts about the Impact Forum, and in particular, this year's program?
Thanks, Gloria. It's so good to be with all of our colleagues again today. And I want to give a shout out to you for your amazing passion and commitment to all that has gone on the last number of years. As you know, Gloria, for many years, we have built the Lake Nona Impact Forum to be what it is today, the premier can't-miss annual event that draws the best multidisciplinary minds in the world around the most important contemporaneous issues affecting the globe. It truly is an incubator of cerebral neuroplastic activity that regularly spawns innovation, leading to market disruption, social good, and economic benefit. COVID has accelerated us. The Lake Nona Impact Forum and brought us to this first virtual forum, which can serve as an introduction, a teaser, if you will, for our planned expanded in-person meeting in November in Tel Aviv. But today you will be enlightened, inspired, and amazed by many of our colleagues and friends who will cover a wide array of epigenetic inputs, from innovation to mental health to humanity's future being dependent on health equity and the impact of the arts as a prescription for health. There are so many of my colleagues, friends to recognize and thank, but I want to give a special shout out of thanks to a dear longtime friend and colleague who we have chased after because he's so busy, who lives at the center of science every day, and during COVID even more if that were possible, our director of the National Institutes of Health, where every discipline and subject you hear today is housed, where innovation is demanded, where honesty, integrity are expected, and science, not politics, rules the day. Dr. Francis Collins, you inspire us all, and we are thrilled to have you with us this year. Now it is my great pleasure to introduce you to my co-chair, a fabulously amazing, global, respected public health leader, someone who has inspired me, and I'm so thrilled to call her a dear friend, the Dean of the Harvard School of Public Health, Dr. Michelle Williams.
Thank you so much, Rich. Let me just say I'm so pleased, so proud that we have committed an act of defiance, a defiance against this wicked pandemic that's allowed us, with our will and our grit, to come together and have this event. Welcome, everyone. I'm so delighted to be here, and I really want you to appreciate that this is, I think, my 6th Lake Nona Impact Forum meeting. And this one is particularly special because we are gathering using technology, using this platform, which I truly believe represents our collective act of defiance against challenges that would otherwise have kept us from gathering to share our passion and our commitment to having an impact. Let me just also say that I think our gathering today represents our act of resilience, a resilience as a community and as a group. And I'm delighted that with Microsoft's sponsorship and the sponsorship of so many others, we're able to expand the audience so that we can have a larger, broader conversation. Even though we operate across different sectors, where some of us are primarily focused on creating value for our boards, creating new generalizable knowledge in our laboratories, or new art in our studios, whether we're creating new therapeutics and diagnostics, or whether we're primarily focused on teaching and training the next generations of clinicians, leaders, practitioners. Whatever it is that's our day job, this forum allows us to hold both deep and broad conversations that concern the whys and the how we can work together across all of these different sectors and disciplines so that we can create positive social change, to have that positive impact that is so important in the name of our forum. So let me just say thank you and welcome. And I want to now throw open the program by throwing over to Chrissy Farr, who will lead a very special discussion on societal resilience with Peter Lee of Microsoft.
Please welcome Chrissy Farr, health tech investor, OMERS Ventures, and Peter Lee, Corporate Vice President of Research and Incubations, Microsoft.
Thank you so much for having us today. This is actually my first Lake Nona Impact Forum, and I'm delighted to be here with my friend Peter Lee. So I'm going to dive right in here, just given our time is limited today, and I have so much to talk to you about. So during this pandemic, one of the things that you and I saw, Peter, is just a dramatic rise in telemedicine. I've never seen anything like it. We went from health systems telling me that they had somewhere in the order of hundreds or even low-digit thousands of video visits a month prior to the pandemic to suddenly hundreds of thousands in the space of a single month. And startups said that they felt that their business had been propelled 5 years into the future just during this time. So what do you think happens as we begin to resume to status quo? Do we remain at these levels, or are we going to see healthcare kind of return to how it was before?
Yeah, it's, 5 years, in some cases, might have been even 10 years, because it's not just live consultations that happen, but AI-powered chatbots, self-assessment tools, mental health became a big deal through telehealth. Those things, I think people before the pandemic would have said maybe 2030 at the earliest, we'd see those things. And, it was just amazing to see how fast that all developed. And I think the early evidence is pretty strong that consumers like that convenience. And so I think it's here to stay. And furthermore, the regulatory environment, not just in the US, but in a lot of regulated geographies around the world, have accommodated this. And so I think it's here to stay. And there's a lot of headroom. Roughly, there was a reduction, I think, in outpatient services during the heat of the pandemic by about 25%, and only about 5%, about a fifth of that 25% reduction has been taken up in telehealth. And so there's even just tremendous growth potential that really hasn't happened. It's a change. The big thing that I think about in that change is, what does this mean for your health history and your health data? If you think about it from a health provider's perspective, they will be seeing a much greater diversity of patients. Patients maybe will be getting their health care from a wider variety and greater diversity of doctors and nurses and other providers. And so how does your information get around? How does that clinician that is maybe seeing you for the first time get access to your health history, understand your allergies and all of those things? And so I also think that telehealth is going to have it's going to be a profoundly powerful driving force for health data as well.
Absolutely. And health data is something you and I have talked about a great deal, because it's something you take very seriously in your role at Microsoft. So one of the things that we would love to see happen in the medical industry is this push towards interoperability of medical information. And that hasn't happened yet for a number of different reasons. And I think it's very much holding us back from the innovation that we want to see as an industry, that we can't freely share medical information. And this came up too during the pandemic. I think there's more that we could have done had we had that information available. So how do we solve this problem going forward? Will it be something that the industry dives into, or is it something that we need consumers and patients to take on themselves, to raise their hands and say, this is my information, my imaging, my labs, my data?
Yeah, it's the first thing I always like to just make sure we recognize is that the entire health system actually has become incredibly digital over the last 15 years. It was only 15 years ago that I think less than 15% of health records in the US were in digital form. Some of us can still remember, our health records being in a manila file folder in some storage room, and it wasn't that long ago. And so today, I think the statistic is we're approaching 99% of health records that are created are in digital form. And that's an amazing digitization. And then add on top of that all of the medical devices, all of the enterprise resource planning about where hospital beds and where equipment lies, consumer fitness devices, so on. All of that has become digital. But despite all of that digitization, what has happened during the pressure testing of responding to a pandemic, we still were flying blind, like really basic questions like, how many patient encounters, COVID encounters, are we having in a county or a state or in the country? What's our capacity for treating those? What will this trend be like over the next 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years? What percentage of that capacity is utilized today and what will be utilized in the future? How can we connect the enterprise resource planning system in a health system that keeps track of where the PPE is with all of that? And it was just frustrating. We know all of the information, all the answers are in the data, but we weren't able to connect those dots and pull it together. And so while I think over the last 15 years, we've digitized healthcare, all we've done is really created the data. We haven't yet put it into a form where we can actually gain insight and really operate well, especially in crisis response. And I think that will be the next 15 years. I have an analogy about trying to build a house. So to build a house, you need lumber, good lumber. You need good tools. So that lumber is the data, digital data that we have today. And we have all these tools for data analysis, predictability, predictive analytics, machine learning, AI. But what's the architecture for the house that we're trying to build? What are the framing standards? What are the components? You know, when we're building a house, we have roofing systems, we have plumbing systems, electrical systems, and we don't need to get lawyers together to get our roofer and plumber, you know, to be able to work at the same time. There's modularity; they can work at the same time because we know what those components are. And we have building codes, so there's a role for government to ensure that things are done properly and safely. That architecture and what the major components are, we're still lacking today. And where it really hits a tech company, especially startups, but even big companies like Microsoft, is let's imagine there's a startup that has a better idea for better kinds of windows. In home construction, since there are framing standards, that startup can make a great window and start selling at scale. They can just plug in. In healthcare, there's no framing standards. It's artisanal work to integrate a window into each and every house. So you have a poor startup that has to go to Stanford Hospital and do soup to nuts integration of their better idea. And then they have to do it all over again for Johns Hopkins Medical Center and again for another health system. And so it just, that lack of architecture also is impeding innovation. And so for me, you know, coming together around industry standards about what does the tech stack look like? What are the major components? How do we make those modular? And then the government's role in that is around standards and, you know, the analog of building codes to ensure that things are safe. I feel personally like I've learned 10 years of lessons in 1 year in all of this, just in this pressure test.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that analogy, and I think it really works. So during this pandemic, there was some very big news from Microsoft that I would be remiss not to ask you about, and that was the $16 billion acquisition of a company called Nuance, which a lot of the doctors that I speak to on a regular basis use all the time. It's a very popular kind of software tool for them that does a variety of things. And I wanted to ask, you know, what was the reason for that, and what does it tell us about Microsoft's future in health?
Right. Well, gee, I'm surprised you asked about this. I'm so excited about this. Nuance is a great company. Under Mark Benjamin's leadership, they've really focused very squarely on just helping people do their work better, you know, by trying to understand what they're talking about. And we, for the last 2 years, have been working with them on a product called DAX, Dragon Ambient Experience, which is an AI technology that is installed in doctors' exam rooms and just listens to doctor-patient conversations and sets up a clinical encounter note, largely automatically. While that's only available for specific subspecialties now, the doctors who are using this, just the satisfaction scores and just the embrace of this has been tremendous. So it just really touched a nerve. But at the same time, you know, while we saw tremendous potential, because there's something like over 500,000 doctors that are using Nuance technologies for multiple hours a day, every day. And something like 75% of radiologists in North America are living in Nuance PowerScribe all day, every day. There were limits to how closely Microsoft and Nuance could work together to put our cloud and AI technologies deeply integrated. with those nuance technologies, because Nuance had to protect their crown jewels, their special access to healthcare systems and the data flows. We had to protect some of our crown jewels on some of our AI models and machine learning. And so it was making us slower. And especially, partly fed by the pandemic response, where there was just much more urgency to help doctors. It just made sense for us to work as one company, where we wouldn't have to be so protective of our specific special IP, and then use Nuance's tremendous installed base as a launching point to really get practical cutting-edge AI into the hands of doctors in exam rooms, in surgical theaters, in morgues, in really every part, just to provide. Think of that as a Trojan horse. It's AI delivery from the cloud, right at the clinical point of care. And so I'm really tremendously excited about this. And Nuance has already been on our cloud. We're both very trusted by the industry. And we're not about disrupting anyone. We're about transforming what people do to be better. And so I think it's a match made in heaven, I think.
Yeah,
yeah, you can tell I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I can tell. It sounds like a lot more kind of scaling of this technology is something to expect in years to come. So one of the things that you and I have talked about our time together is SciComm, science communication, and this is something that matters a lot to you, given your background in STEM. You've been at Microsoft a long time, and also DARPA. And I think that was a failure that we saw during this pandemic, at least from my perspective as a journalist and then an investor in this space, that there were many times where I think the science communication just wasn't where it needed to be, that the messages were confusing, people didn't know what to do. And I think there were some trust gaps as well that were exposed, particularly among, our most vulnerable, that felt that they couldn't trust some of what they were hearing. So how are you kind of thinking through this as we think about this post-pandemic future? How do we repair some of that trust and improve the way that we communicate to people about science?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing what Nubar has to say about this in the next session. I think this was a year of something that I call crisis response science. Increasingly, we're finding not just for a global pandemic like this, but calamities like the Australian wildfires, threats to, say, democratic infrastructure, say for voting. I don't know, if a major asteroid is about to hit the Earth, who are you going to call? You're going to call scientists to come to respond to these major crises. And now that suddenly thrust the process of scientific discovery into a different realm, where the normal course of scientific discovery and debate becomes very open to the public. The reporters want to investigate it and report on it, and it becomes very political. And so now, in this crisis response science that is based on open debate, on disagreement, on skepticism as a part of the discovery process, to open that up into the public spotlight, for it to have meaningful impact on the political futures of one party or another, is a different paradigm. And in fact, I think it's such a profound thing for the process of science that within Microsoft Research, we've created a new group called Societal Resilience to try to understand the scientific process in response to major crises, recovery from those crises, and then the resilience to those future crises. And, I'll admit I will probably have some post-traumatic stress from, some of what happened over this past year, where you're just the normal scientific debate suddenly gets written about, let's say in the New York Times, and it's messy, it's controversial, and people disagree, but also the public isn't used to it, and so they take too much away from, they conclude too much. But I also think that this is tremendously exciting. I think in the same way that people are live streaming their day-to-day activities, their video game playing, their cooking, I think we're going to move into a crisis response science mode where people will be live streaming their scientific whiteboard sessions to the public. And so it's a different paradigm that I think this pandemic has sparked.
Well, thank you, Peter. I'm both excited and slightly terrified for this new world, but I think the idea of open science is a very compelling one. And with that, we're going to move to the next session, where I'm sure we'll be probing some of these issues further to Alan Murray, CEO of Fortune and Nubar from Moderna. Thank you so much, Peter. This has been a great conversation. I look forward to the next one.
Thank you.
Please welcome Alan Murray, CEO Fortune Media, and Nubar Afeyan, co-founder and chairman Moderna, CEO Flagship Pioneering.
Wow. Well, thank you, Chrissy and Peter, for getting us going with that conversation, and a perfect lead-in to this conversation with the talk about societal resilience and public science. Nubar, thank you so much for joining us here, if not at Lake Nona, at least at virtual Lake Nona.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So we all now know Moderna, and we know what Moderna is and the incredible thing that Moderna has done. I don't think we all know Flagship Pioneering. Can you explain what you do?
Well, thanks, Alan. Flagship Pioneering is an organization that's about 20 years old now, and we're completely dedicated to conceiving, creating, and launching platform companies that can transform either health or sustainability. So our object is to make breakthrough innovations and embody them in companies. We think new companies are the best natural form to create lots of value for the innovators. And that's what we specialize in. And we, over the last 20 years, have been involved in doing that activity some 75 different times, of which Moderna was the 18th. It was called LS18 when it was born.
18 of 75. You told me once that your job is to do the impossible.
Is to attempt to do that and not worry about failing along the way once in a while.
Yeah, well, it's extraordinary, and Moderna is certainly one of your successes. How did Moderna itself happen?
Our process, Alan, as you know, starts out with these leaps. In other words, we try to envision and foresee what might be possible without any real need to first prove that it's possible. And so the impossible is the realm of our imagination. And it doesn't mean that everything impossible is worth doing. So we first spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out, if you could only do something, would it really be transformative? And in this case, the question was, what if we could use a patient's body, broadly a human, to make their own drug by giving them a code for that drug? So if we gave somebody an instruction, could we actually manufacture what is otherwise done in $1 billion plant, highly regulated, etc.? Every one of our cells does what every biotechnology manufacturing plant can do. And so the question was, could we do that? And then how could we do that? And we looked at a range of code molecules and found messenger RNA being one that had been looked at before, but generally discarded because it happens to share a problem that viruses share, which is that our innate immune system doesn't like them very much, and so attacks them. And so what really was the initial leap was to say, okay, could we overcome that innate immune response, and in that way actually create a robust way to create medicines out of messenger RNA, something that in 2010 had not been worked on, had been projected as a possibility in the future, and we set out to do that.
And so now you've had this spectacular demonstration of the success of that approach. You've done it successfully with the vaccine. Where else can messenger RNA solve health problems for us?
Well, the thing that was lost in the previous session, there was comment made around the media kind of covering this whole last year. The thing that was lost last year was that even previous to the vaccine, we had entered the clinic with 9 other vaccines and another, dozen therapeutics, and we were actively testing these in humans, which meant that our RNA had already been dosed to a couple of thousand people, and we had seen neutralizing antibodies made against RSV, an infectious viral disease, CMV, a very serious disease against which we have no answer, and on, many pandemic influenza strains. So we knew already that we could identify a sequence, make it, deliver it safely, and engender at least a neutralizing antibody response. What we didn't know, or at least hadn't shown, is that that neutralizing antibody response would do the same thing as it does every time you take a vaccine, which is eliminate the virus and counteract it. And to show that, we had to spend 4 months and do a very large phase 3 clinical trial. So the answer is all the programs we already had in the clinic, those are advancing. We announced not too long ago that we will go after a flu vaccine, both a kind of a seasonal, but also a pan-flu vaccine. We have a number of other vaccines that we're going to develop, but also the same platform works with drugs against cancer, drugs against autoimmune disease, drugs against cardiovascular disease. We have, I think, now well over 20 different clinical programs, all ongoing, testing in humans.
Everyone in the healthcare business that I've talked to about this last year said the pace of innovation has been extraordinary. That because there was a clear goal, a clear purpose out there, because companies were willing to cooperate and work together, because everybody felt the urgency of the task, they were able to do things much faster than they ever thought before. So we have lots of other healthcare problems to address. How do we impose the same urgency and the same speed and the same degree of innovation in attacking those problems?
Well, let me answer it by making a small clarification, because you have to realize that Moderna itself was an overnight success 10 years in the making, because we had developed and spent over $2 billion making a platform of the sort that this industry, certainly biotech, has never seen. But our colleagues at Microsoft and Apple and Google and Facebook all know well the power of platforms as it relates to making a central investment in a capability that then gives product after product in terms of applications. And so we had developed this platform, and it is extreme, that is the reason why we could, in 2 days from getting the sequence, make the product, in 2 weeks, test it in animals, in 40 days, get it to the NIH to test in humans. So truthfully, while this is an innovation, the last year was purely application.
Execution.
And that's what was done quickly. Now, the other side, though, of your question is important, which is, I think that the reason we didn't know this can be done is that as an industry, we've resigned ourselves to the fact that developing drugs is a slow, laborious, costly, and very low probability event. And so it's a little bit like hurry up and wait. So if you hurry up in making the drug and then you have to wait forever to test it, then saving another week isn't going to matter. But because of the pandemic, we were allowed to dare to try all this in a fraction. I'm talking 10, 20% of the time people thought possible. And sure enough, it was possible. We had a lot of help from the NIH, from the FDA. I mean, this would have been impossible without the FDA working collaboratively, not to help us, but to clarify what needed to be done such that we could respond to this pandemic in a relevant time frame. So but for that, but for the partnerships, of course, we've had manufacturing partnerships. So going forward, I think that one of the things to take away is that this is possible. We didn't think it was possible, therefore we didn't try as an industry. Now the question should be flipped. Why aren't we doing this in every single case? And really, what of the aspects of quick, quote, going fast is exposing us to any more risk? Because if you can actually go fast and still not miss any of the gates, like in a slalom ski racing, then that's called winning. It's not. So it's only if you miss the gates. It's only if you take shortcuts. And I think the notion that people are inclined to take shortcuts is a inconsistent with the fact that people who are in this industry know they impact lives. They are in a regulated industry. The whole world is looking at what they do, not just with a pandemic. In general, cancer patients expect this to be done thoroughly. So I would say the possibility plus the will plus the market need should cause us to develop influenza vaccines relatively soon that are not 50% effective, but much more. Should think about how to collaborate on some of the big vexing problems we have, whether it's a neurodegenerative disease. It's not going to be all shrunk to a year, let me be clear. But I think we should lean in and attach safeguards versus lean back and then just say, well, eventually these things will get approved and then there's a financial reward. I think that's not appropriate for the technology age we live in.
Yeah, and so Nubar, if you take that approach and you look more broadly at your portfolio of companies, or look more broadly at the challenges we face in healthcare, where are the next innovations going to come? What's your prediction? This, by the way, thanks to Pat Garrity, the CEO of GuideWell, for suggesting this question. But everybody wants you to look around the corner for us and say, where are the next big innovations that are going to cause breakthrough healthcare advancement?
You know, at the interface between biology and technology is kind of glorious waterfront opportunity that's been opened up here, because that what we're finding is that what we're learning about biological processes, the support of machine learning and AI in enabling us to perhaps not make sense out of them for humans, but make sense out of them for machines that can actually make this next step and the next step, which we never could do before. We could never deal with a piece of data, 10,000 pieces of data and act on it. We now can. So I'd say at the interface of biology technology, there's going to be new classes of medicines. We have another dozen such platforms existing today, and I think that'll proliferate. Application of that more broadly into detection, diagnostics, that'll grow, because again, we're seeing the marriage of these things accelerate. But I'd say the biggest thing, Alan, that interests us is truly to take this scientific knowledge, tools, and somewhat courage to go upstream of disease. I mean, look, everybody knows that if you wait for whatever you're trying to get fixed to be completely broken, and then you take it in to be fixed, that's a bigger problem than if you could act early. In fact, if you could prevent it from getting broken, even better. Well, for our health and only our health, we don't do that, because actually the whole industry, I think it's been estimated some 97% of the expenditures in healthcare are to treat diseases, not to delay or deter diseases. Vaccines are an exception to that, and until COVID, they were a complete backwater of the pharmaceutical industry. People were getting out of it as fast as they could. Now we're going to enter an age where I do think society has to ask itself, really, does it make sense to obsess over sick care instead of securing our health, protecting our health? And that's something that people have said for decades. But then we now have tools. We now can actually see disease in the making. We now can see intervention points for a disease that's not yet symptomatic or not even diagnosable, but we can do something about it. And I am looking forward in the immediate future to a set of kind of adventures, if you will, upstream of disease, where we can really change the paradigm and, I believe, dramatically lower the cost of sick care by avoiding a lot of it.
Fascinating. And let me ask you, Peter Lee in the last session talked about, excuse me for my dogs there.
Your dog agrees.
Peter Lee talked about societal resistance. You've written and talked a lot about health security. What do you mean by that?
Well, look, I think that just like our physical security is subject to the government spending both in surveillance, detection. You know, people ask me a lot, what about these variants and can we detect them before we know they exist? Of course we can. It's called surveillance. And if you don't have to know what you're looking for to be able to find it, there's ways in which we can find related entities and very quickly act. So I think that health security for us is not just against infectious disease, but it's the attitude that says you can't just assume that if you're not sick, then you're well. In between, all of us have multiple pre-disease states that we carry with us. These are not just genetic. These are based on how we've lived. And during that phase, if we can actually think about how to secure our health against disease and do steps that can actually prevent or delay that disease or even derail the disease, in other words, make it into another disease, not the one that is fatal, those are all things that I believe we can do. And we think a broader definition, encouraged by the pandemic that showed us how vulnerable we are to an infectious disease, would change this field dramatically.
Could you give an example of possibly something you're working on in that area, or just to help us visualize that health security idea?
I can give you two very quick ones. One of them is that we're working actively on what we call a global pathogen shield, which basically takes the information we have around possible variants of a virus, particularly SARS-CoV-2, computationally forecast the millions of variants that could exist, derive from them computationally which ones actually will exist, because a lot of them won't make for a real virus, and then figure out which antibodies are needed to target a broad net of those, and then make those antibodies or engender them in the body. That combination of steps has never happened. So this is not a magic bullet that hits every coronavirus, because no one bullet will do that. But you could think about a net of them. And so that's one thing. The other one is just going after diseases like autoimmune disease in the very early formative stages and finding markers for those early manifestations and being able to try interventions, do rigorous clinical testing, but at a very, very early stage. Those are all things that are in action being tried.
Nubar Afeyan, you are a gift to healthcare and a gift to society. And thank you for taking a little bit of your busy day to be with us today. And I hope you'll come to Lake Nona in the fall. Thank you. And I see my friend Elias on the line, and Margaret, and look forward to hearing your comments. Thank you. Thanks so much. And
thanks,
Alan. Yeah, thank you, Nubar. And let's hand it off now to Peggy Hamburg.
Please welcome Dr. Peggy Hamburg, 21st Commissioner, U.S. Food and Drug Administration. And joining her is Emer Cook, Executive Director, European Medicines Agency, Professor John Lim, Senior Advisor, Singapore Ministry of Health, and Dr. Elias Zerhouni, Board of Directors, Foundation for the National Institutes of Health.
Thank you so much. Hello, it's really a pleasure to follow the conversation with Nubar, and I think it leads so nicely into the discussion that we're going to have on our panel, which is about moving toward greater regulatory coordination, why regulation matters. As the COVID pandemic powerfully reminds us, we live in a globalized, highly interconnected world, and certainly science too is a global enterprise. As we grapple with COVID and look to the future, we must seek better ways to harness and deliver on the power of science and technology to address unmet public health and medical care needs and to serve humanity. Medical product regulation, though, is often viewed as a barrier to much needed innovation. But when done right, it can actually help to speed progress and improve the safety, efficacy, and quality of products that people need. We've seen that with COVID, where novel vaccines were developed with a speed that was unprecedented and authorized swiftly, but we've seen it in other instances as well. We also must recognize, though, that the current system, the mosaic of regulation that governs medical product development and oversight country by country, does create unnecessary hurdles to the efficient and effective delivery of new medical products. Greater collaboration and harmonization amongst national regulatory authorities and with industry and the academic research community represents a huge opportunity to make a difference and speed innovation in an ongoing way. The people on this panel represent a group of leaders in medical product R&D and regulation who've worked together for many years now from different positions in different parts of the world in an effort to achieve greater global regulatory collaboration, alignment, and harmonization. We're all friends and colleagues, and it's a wonderful honor for me to be able to lead this conversation, which will be all too brief, as we think about how we can make continuing progress to serve the public. So let me turn to Emer for the first question. We were just hearing about in the conversation with Nubar the development of new COVID vaccines that have, proceeded with extraordinary speed, dramatic breakthroughs in science. The rollout of these vaccines is now underway. And I thought maybe it'd be interesting for you to talk a bit about what Nubar touched on, which is the role of the regulatory authority, and importantly, how the global regulatory community worked to make this possible. Emer?
Oops. Peggy, thank you very much. And it's a real pleasure to be here, even if it's only virtual. And I have never been to Lake Nona, but I hope I will get there at some stage. So yeah, very important. It's very important to think about how we as regulators have helped to make this happen. I have to say that I still find it hard to believe that virtually within 15 months of a pandemic, we have authorized 4 highly effective vaccines in Europe. And this is really the result of an incredible worldwide collaboration between multiple stakeholders, industry, governments, researchers, academics, and experts from around the world. And we heard this from Nubar. But you, Peggy, were instrumental in setting up the International Coalition of Medicines Regulatory Authorities in 2014 while you were FDA Commissioner. And this is a strategic alliance of, now we have 34 medicines regulators. And I have had the privilege to chair this coalition since November last year when I started as Executive Director of EMA. And I have to say that the pandemic has really galvanized medicines regulators to work together towards a common goal. The first most important achievement was probably this agreement on an approach to vaccine development back in March 2020, so over a year ago. And this was quickly followed by collaboration on clinical trial regulatory requirements, on safety monitoring, on vaccine hesitancy. And more recently, we've been working on the type of clinical trials that you would need to allow to adapt vaccines to treat variants, as we've also heard from Nubar. We've also looked at common approaches to remote inspections and other forms of regulatory flexibility. So these are things that we would never have done before without the pandemic, or we would have talked about them or still be talking about them. So I think what's happened is that we have moved to really realizing that collaboration makes a difference, and we have to collaborate now. Later is too late. Maybe just to say that in this context, we're also working closely with the World Health Organization, so that not only the regulators in ICMRA or work together, but we can also cascade this to regulators across the world. And we've seen unprecedented openness and transparency. So when ICMRA was born, it was born of the idea that regulators around the world face common challenges. But the speed of vaccine development made us really look at those common challenges in real life. No time to wait, no time to lose.
Well, thank you so much, Emer. And as you have noted, extraordinary things have been accomplished. I want to turn now to Elias, who has sat on the other side of vaccine development and other medical product development when he was president of global R&D at Sanofi, a global pharmaceuticals company. And, certainly it must have been challenging, Elias, to work with so many different regulatory authorities with different rules and regulations and expectations, even in how the paperwork was done. What kinds of inefficiencies, barriers, and frustrations did you face? And, can you talk a little bit about what you think are some of the obvious steps that can help us move forward in positive ways more effectively?
Well, thank you for having me. And first, let me recognize what Director Emer Cook just said. There's been a lot of progress over the past 10 years. I became responsible for a large portfolio of development products at Sanofi, as you know, after having been at NIH. Even at NIH, I was noticing how within the FDA, the different divisions did not necessarily use the same philosophy, if you will, of regulation. And then fast forward, when I became head of R&D, it was quite obvious to me that there was a cost imposed by the lack of harmonization between regulatory agencies. And, I actually spoke to one of the annual meetings of the EMA with the predecessors of Dr. Cook and yourself, and I was glad to see you form the ICMRA that really unifies all of the agencies. However, when you look at the cost imposed on the R&D and the unintended consequences of uncoordinated regulatory regimes, several observations can be made. And let me just start by using an example of what works to sort of project forward what could be an environmental and a change in the environment of regulations on the global basis. And the model I use is air traffic control. Imagine a world where airplanes would not be approved in different regions of the world. You'd have to go from the US, stop in London, change planes to go to Europe because the planes are not approved. And then if you had to change airspace, you couldn't use English anymore. You had to switch and translate everything the pilot says to the local air traffic controllers. If you didn't really have a set of coordinated regulations around the world, air traffic would not be possible. I'm using this as an analogy because I think we can reach that in the regulatory world of today. And this is actually made even more acute by the pandemic. For example, and for good reasons, there are political, accountability reasons, different philosophies of risk management. You see the EMA, for example, has different requirements than FDA and other agencies, and I know in Asia it's also the same thing. And what I observed was that if you truly looked at these differences, they were really fundamentally related to local conditions, but the local decision today is not local anymore because of the internet and the flow of information. Everybody knows about the decision of every regulatory agency in real time, which has an impact on public health. Because as you can see, AstraZeneca's vaccine is approved in Europe, not yet in the US, and that raises a lot of questions and enhances vaccine hesitancy. So these things, although independent, are not independent, they're interdependent. So my point is this, is that at the end of the day, there are overlaps in the missions of the agencies that are low-hanging fruits, which some of which you've already accomplished, for example, cross-inspection of factories and manufacturing. I'll give you an example that was frustrating to me. Pediatric studies are mandated by regulatory agencies once you have a product approved for adults. And the regulations, while they have the same purpose, actually force you to double the kinds of clinical trials you have to do. All in all, I think it imposes an inefficiency on the system, which is being improved, and I have to really congratulate all of you regulators because of the regulatory science you have been pushing, and that I think I see progress, really. We're not there yet, but I hope we will soon. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And it's interesting to me that you note the airlines industry, because that was actually a model as we were creating the International Coalition of Medicine Regulatory Authorities, ICMRA, which Emer had commented on. And John, you were there at the beginning of ICMRA. You have served with great leadership as the head of regulatory authority in Singapore, and now heading up an organization that is committed to strengthening regulatory science, regulatory practice, building regulatory capacity, and enhancing collaboration in the Southeast Asia region and beyond. And so, you know, your perspective on the COVID-19 experience and what it really can teach us about steps needed to further enhance regulatory harmonization. What are the critical needs and activities going forward?
Well, thank you very much, Maggie. Wonderful to be on this session with Emer Elias. So what we've found, of course, from Southeast Asia and from Singapore's perspective, as you look at the region, is that regulatory flexibility or agility, as Emer was talking about, is extremely critical, because in our part of the world, regulatory agencies are of a very different order of magnitude at times. I mean, Singapore is a pretty advanced system, but around the region, you would find very divergent capacities when we look at the regulators. And as we've seen, especially in the case of vaccines in the last few months, even in Southeast Asia, each country has had to sort of make very quick decisions on their own because there's no holistic framework, unlike in Europe. And so in this kind of context, harmonization or convergence is very critical, where countries do need to rely on the decisions of other authorities, and that decision can be taken either to sort of look at the stringent regulatory authorities like the FDA or the European Medicines Agency or other countries in the region. And this whole aspect of reliance is really critical if we're thinking of fast access of medicines, especially to low and middle income countries. But at this point in time, and I wrote a little thought piece on this, in fact, what we're seeing is divergence rather than convergence in the short term, because each country has to make very quick public health decisions because there's been no framework really for the strengthening of the reliance or referencing system that Emo is referring to, which the World Health Organization is trying to promote. But this is absolutely critical going forwards, because without that, not just in this pandemic, but in future public health emergencies in the future, if we don't address this issue, we will continue to face this lag, as it were, in terms of access to medicines. And it is critical that even when emergency use authorizations are applied, as we've seen in the current context, we do not compromise on the safety, quality, and efficacy to the degree that the data is available for people to reference when different countries have access to the different vaccines. And so this is a kind of issue we have to be very aware of. And ICMRA has played a significant role in facilitating the exchange of information, but I think this it needs to be developed. We have systems in the Southeast Asian region where there's referencing, but there's a lot more that can be done to strengthen it. And around the Asia Pacific as well, convergence, as it's been called, has been going on for the last 10 years. But again, we really need to apply this and strengthen it. So I think that's the kind of perspective, Peggy, that is coming from our part of the world. And capacity building, as you say, is critical, which is why the Center of Regulatory Excellence that I head at the Duke NUS Medical School in Singapore at this point in time has its clear mission to strengthen that regulatory capacity to enable regulators to be able to reference and rely on each other to a much greater degree.
Well, I think more than ever before, the public and policymakers appreciate the critical role that regulatory authorities play, and I hope that we will be able to continue to build and extend and strengthen the capacity of regulatory authorities, support and invest in regulatory science, and also make sure that the regulators are viewed as full partners. Certainly, as we look at the current COVID crisis, and in particular, as we see how the public is turning to regulators for critical information about their health, safety, and well-being, the need for regulators to be able to speak clearly and often with a common message is important. And I thought, Emer, you're right now in a position where you day in and day out are dealing with this, and certainly as we're discussing vaccines, it's hard not to address the safety concerns that have recently been raised around a couple of the vaccines, first the AstraZeneca and now the J&J vaccine. And I wondered if you could say a word about that, and importantly, how regulators are working together to assess the issues and respond.
Yeah, I think this is really the nub of our collaboration. And even before we had any vaccines, I think all regulators, big and small, knew that dealing with suspected safety concerns around vaccines was going to be one of the biggest challenges following vaccine rollout. But it was also a huge opportunity to show regulatory collaboration in real life. And we started early on sharing best practices, background rates for sort of known effects, and trying to address the whole communication issue around vaccine hesitancy. And when the first vaccines were authorized, we set up what we call a red phone group between a small number of regulators to allow us to share alerts and communicate information in real time, even before we validated this information. I think it's sort of confounded by all the attention that we have now, because we, you know, to really evaluate a potential side effect, it takes a little bit of time. And I think that the public expects us to have immediate answers. So this is one of our big challenges. But this idea that we could share alerts and communication in real time, even before the information was validated, and quickly set up meetings to share experiences and emergent data, has been extremely valuable in the context of the current pandemic. So let me give you an example. When we had the first cases of anaphylaxis with the Pfizer vaccines in the US, this was the Pfizer vaccine had been given an emergency use authorization, and it meant that when we authorized the vaccine a couple of weeks later, we already had a specific warning in the label. And now if we look at the responses to the recent reports of the very rare thrombosis with low platelet count, which we started to see with the AstraZeneca vaccine in Europe. Now, I know you don't have it on the market in the US, but we started to see it in early March. And now we see in the US that the same sort of syndrome with the J&J vaccine, but it's really benefited from international collaboration, because these are very rare side effects, and you're not going to see them in clinical trials, but you want to be able to react immediately once you see any sort of problem, and to get your best experts in to work on them. So this meant that when the US began to see the similar events with the J&J vaccine, FDA was not starting from scratch, and also it meant that FDA could share their findings with us even before we started to roll out the vaccine in Europe. So what I think we're seeing is example of excellent pharmacovigilance. It's showing that the systems work, because pharmacovigilance is about looking at what happens in real life. Excellent pharmacovigilance, transparency, information sharing, collaboration. Even if the end different decisions might be taken, but these might be because of the stage of the epidemic or the availability of other vaccines. And these are things that are not necessary. People don't see that actually you might have a different context to decisions on vaccines and use.
Thank you. Very helpful, comprehensive answer to a complex set of concerns. And I want to turn to Elias now. Obviously, trust and confidence in medical products is essential for both companies and for the work of regulators. Always difficult balances between assessing benefits and risks. There, I think, has been a lot of concern about whether the FDA decision to take a pause because of this emerging rare but serious potential safety issue will undermine that very important confidence and enhance so-called vaccine hesitancy. I was just curious your perspective on this.
From my point of view, it's a situation where in the short term, it is absolutely raising issues and questions. Why would the FDA stop the distribution of the vaccine? So in the short term, it creates a dissonance in the public and says, wow, I don't want this vaccine. I want the others that don't have the same dissonance. And if you look at trust and confidence, the definition of trust that I use is the ability to predict someone's behavior or some institutional behavior. And when there are dissonant voices that occur within the same institution or between institutions in Europe and the US, it basically destroys the confidence that you need to have, right? Well, in this particular case, I think the FDA did the right thing, just like EMA did the right thing about stopping, evaluating, and coming up with a very thoughtful, science-based recommendation, because in the midterm and long term, this will have the characteristic of maintaining trust. You see, that these agencies are not just reacting in a way that says, well, I want to protect this vaccine, let it go, and then I'll figure out the risk later. I think the public expects the regulators to be protector of the public welfare. And that, I think, is absolutely necessary. The second point that I would make is that although pharmacovigilance has worked and is working, I think what is lacking really perhaps, and I just want to put a plug for this since you are experts in this domain, is in addition to what we talked about in the sense of not having clearly aligned regulations and overlapping requirements that improve and increase costs today, what I really think is we're not using in terms of regulatory science the abilities of the cloud, the information systems that have developed. As you know, we created between NIH and FDA the Sentinel system for the FDA. This is not shared. I think it is time that we move into what I think is going to be the emerging requirement and emerging priority for regulatory agencies, and that is that just as we define GLP, good lab practices, GCP, good clinical practices, GMP, we don't have a body of what I call GDP, good digital practices, that companies and regulators can work on and share. I've been an advocate, for example, here in the US, to have companies absolutely share the data online with the FDA instead of waiting for the sequential management of the data, and also have it shared with the other agencies at the same time with the same content to avoid the risk of what I call translation errors or timing errors and like of the the coordination that you have to have. Because remember, a company has to register products in 110 countries, 120 countries, and it's not easy to do. And I think we do have potential solution with technology.
Well, certainly, as we were hearing earlier in this Lake Nona Impact Forum, technology has the opportunity to transform so much of how we develop products and use them in the clinical setting, in communities, et cetera. The need to enhance regulatory capacity needs to embrace the new era of technology. But as John was saying earlier, when he was talking about the region that he works in, there are so many differing levels of capacity and sophistication and the resources available to different regulatory authorities, and every country, of course, wanting to oversee their own regulatory decision making, but also wanting to take advantage of the knowledge, expertise, and capabilities that exist elsewhere. John, I'm curious if you could drill down a little bit more about how you think about moving into this next era where perhaps almost through the use of technology and also systems for greater collaboration, we might be able to leapfrog a bit. But do you see a way forward to really enhance and build this regional capacity through these kinds of investments in technology, as well as training, technical assistance, and the kind of support that you're providing through CORE?
Yes, I do. I think one of the issues, though, of technology is that in the different countries, especially in low and middle income countries, the infrastructure may not necessarily be there. So I think more basic solutions have to be addressed first. Having said that, I think in the past 15 to 20 years, countries really have been looking more to reference one another and look at decisions which others have taken, which already helps in a region like ours, especially I think with the COVID situation, where in fact fast decisions have had to be made, and less resourced countries are able to have access to information, for example, as we said earlier, through ICMRA, but also through regional groupings. And so that's a critical thing first. But being able to do that does require some training, because if you're not consistent in actually what you're talking about, that actually causes the issues which Elias was referring to, where you get a lot of country-specific overlays in terms of the regulatory decision-making. But I think, in fact, the pandemic is forcing people to realize that they do need to work together. And although the commitment has already been there, the actual effecting of this is moving at a significant pace, largely because the vaccines came on much faster than we expected. And now people do have to reference decisions which others have taken, because the regulator has to make sure that even though fast decisions are made and whatever social political pressures are on them, they still need to ensure that there is a fundamental level of safety, quality, and efficacy, even in emergency use authorization or conditional authorization. But all this comes together, and I think, in fact, picking up on the point of where this is going to lead us, I think if we do not waste this crisis and we apply the lessons we are learning, this is going to be significantly important for populations, for various regions. It will help the industry, and ultimately, I think it will enhance public health going forward.
Well, thank you very much, John. And we are coming to the end of our time. I think actually your answer was a spectacular way for us to bring this panel to a close. Clearly, the COVID crisis has caused us to think and act in new ways. It has enabled us to come together in public-private partnerships that really matter. It has, I think, made the public really appreciate the power of science, but also made all of us understand that it is our, very special responsibility to make sure that that science is truly harnessed to deliver what people need. We have to keep this momentum going forward. Look forward to more discussions with all of you, and really appreciate the chance to discuss this issue in this important forum. And I will now turn the stage back, so to speak, to Alan Murray, Fortune's CEO, for what I'm sure will be another great session. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please welcome back Alan Murray, CEO Fortune Media, and Hans Vestberg, Chairman and CEO Verizon.
Thank you to Peggy and the panel for a great discussion, and thank you to you, Hans, for taking the time to join us at the Impact Forum today.
Great to be here, Alan. Thank you for having me.
So you have pretty much dedicated your life and your career to creating connectivity. And in the past year, we've seen a kind of astounding, never imagined increase in connectivity. Streaming, video conferencing like this, e-commerce. What does that look like from your position as CEO of Verizon?
We have seen the last 12 months here enormous shift in behavior of usage of connectivity. I mean, I can give you a couple of quotes. Video conferencing and collaboration tools in our network, which is the largest in the United States, is up 3,000% pre-pandemic. The calls, the phone calls that people are doing are usually nowadays 30% longer than pre the pandemic. And the streaming services and internet usage is also up 30-40%, and it's still up there. During a peak in May, April, it was even higher, of course, but many of these behaviors continues. Another thing that is also remarkable, during the epicenter of the COVID, we had cities like New York, very urban areas, where basically people moved 60% less, because we can see how our customers are moving between cell sites, and they were 60% down. That means they were totally at home, they didn't move. That is now gradually back, and it's probably down some 10-15% only right now, because we see that movement coming back. So certain behaviors will definitely be there. Definitely all remote working, broadband usage, collaboration tools will stay there. And I think connectivity in general will actually be even more important as we go forward. And I usually say that we probably have leapfrogged 5 to 7 years of usage of technology. And some of the things I talked about for 10 years ago, remote learning, telehealth, and things that go so slow, we think, that just fast forward in this pandemic. So with all the grief and the toughness of this COVID-19 economy and death we have had with COVID, this is an area which, of course, we have leapfrogged, which has given us also some challenges, which I guess we will come back to later on, because the digital divide is, of course, increasing when you make a revolution of 5 to 7 years on technology.
Yeah, and I do want to come back to that because it's very important, and I know you've dedicated a lot of time and energy to it. But that 5 to 7 year statistic is phenomenal, and you think most of this in terms of the use of technology for e-commerce, video conferencing, health, education is going to continue. We're not going to fall back.
Absolutely, and one of the good thing with that is, of course, that we will make a sustainable, sort of scalable solution of an infrastructure that can scale far quicker than any other. And of course, when the developed countries, let's say US and Europe, are actually adopting this, that means that the scale will also be for the countries that are not equally developed, where they have been fighting to get remote learning or telehealth. They had not have the resources to develop those type of applications. But now with the scale of the rest of the world, they will be addressing it, because as you and I know, in Africa, there will never be enough hospitals in the time span they need in order to create a better health environment. And it will not be enough schools in the time they need neither. But if we can get the digital, then it should be the possibility. It doesn't really matter where you're born or where you come from. You should have an equal opportunity. But it's a lot of work still to be done. But it has changed the mindset of many, many institutions and sectors in the world the last 12 months.
Pretty stunning. Talk about 5G, because I know that's where you're devoting your time and energy and your resources these days. And we all see it, know it, hear about it, but I'm not sure people fully understand what it means to society.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, I started with 5G 2009 and start talking about, because you sit down and you design what are the principles for the next generation wireless technology. And the first thing we discussed was exactly how can we make this for enterprises and society? Because all the from 1G to 4G was basically a consumer driven. You took a phone and can speak in the beginning, and ultimately you can actually stream a service and do your mail on the phone. So that is a progression that is enormous. But we thought about how can we actually change the behaviors for enterprise by using wireless. And that's why when you think about 5G, there are so many use cases, all the way from enterprises actually going wireless and using compute and storage at the edge of the network. But not only that, we can suddenly also use 5G for home broadband because it's so much scalable and so much rapid, because the speed and the throughput is so enormous. So I usually said 1G to 4G has basically two capabilities: speed and throughput, all the time improving. 5G has 8 capabilities, all the way from battery lifetime, extremely low latency, security levels higher. All these are designed in order to meet different use cases. And that's why it's a little bit fussy here, because there are so many opportunities. Ultimately, consumers are going to get a great opportunity also with better efficiency, etc. And I think that sometimes we've talked about 5G so long. The thing is that the network is always ahead of the devices and the applications. And many of the phones at the latter part of last year, including, of course, Apple, came with the first 5G phone. So that's where the kickoff is happening for consumers.
You know, you talk about those 8 capabilities. One of the really important ones is reliability. I mean, if you think just for a healthcare focused group, if we're going to get to the point where people may be doing robotic surgery at distance, you can't have a dropped call. And I'm a Verizon customer. I love my phone, but even in New York City, occasionally there are areas where you drop a call. How can we be sure that 5G is going to give us all those capabilities, including reliability, to do the kind of world-changing things that we've been talking about?
So we build the network in different modules, and one thing for the healthcare system and for remote surgery or any type of device that is life sort of keeping your life sort of going. You do private 5G networks. You actually do on the campus or in a hospital. You produce your own 5G networks that the devices are using, and then you secure 100% coverage, low latency, and no drops. And that's how you do it. And that's the difference with 5G again. I can do slices of a network. I can slice a piece of the network that is only going to the hospital, and they own that, and that's their private 5G network. I cannot do that in previous technologies because basically everybody was using the same. Yeah. For public safety, I've always had the opportunity here in the US to do something extra, but in general. So that's how we're going to secure it. And that's why we are talking to a lot of healthcare companies to redefine their business model by using technology at the edge of the network.
You know, a lot of people talk about the race for 5G as if it is a race. And I think the other racer they usually refer to is China. Is it a race? Does it matter? And are we moving quickly enough to get there?
So one thing that I think is a misconception about the race is that we build on the same technology in all countries in the world. It's a reason why your phone works in any country in the world. This is one of the few industries that shares the patents in the beginning. So all the competitors sit down from the beginning and define this is how it's going to work. And then they define the patents, and then they decide to use those patents. So you have to share. So in one hand, you actually have the greatness of a global scale. That's why we can have a 4G phone costing today $30 in India, because we use the global scale the same. It's not a different technology in India than in the US. So that one need to understand. Then, of course, the challenge when we discuss China is, of course, who is creating those patents, who has the strength in them. And, of course, China has developed quite dramatically in radio technology over the last years. But don't forget, there are some strong European companies. And then I would add in Qualcomm in that mix as well, which is one of the strongest companies in the world when it comes to radio technology. So that's how it works. Then I think deployment when it comes to reaching consumers, I think their US is well in advance and in the leading with Korea and China. China, of course, is rolling out much more because the government decides just roll out and not more, meaning using it equally much as we do here in Korea.
Yeah. Hans, we haven't talked about this yet today, but today is Earth Day.
Yes, it is.
I know that that's become very important to you personally and to Verizon as a company. Can you just talk a little bit about what you're doing and why it's so important to a telecommunications company?
I think when we defined our strategy, which we call Verizon 2.0, it was not that creative. We are 20 years old, and I coming in as a third CEO. The company has been just a fantastic during the 20 years. So, but one thing that we did of change was that we decided we have 4 stakeholders, and they are all part of our strategy: our employees, our shareholders, our customers, and the society. And they are part of the strategy. It's not the philanthropy. We still do philanthropy, but that's not what part I'm discussing here. It's actually how you act as a corporation. So we decided for certain areas which is connected to our strategy when it comes to sustainability, we call it Citizen Verizon. That's sort of our umbrella for how we act and be in the market. There are 3 areas we're focused on. First of all is digital inclusion, which we're doing. We're building schools with broadband, digital capabilities with STEM education, very much in line with what we want our youth to learn. So we have a target of 10 million students by 2030. The other area is human prosperity. We work a lot by retraining and seeing that the next generation of leaders actually can handle the new technologies. And lastly, I think that in the Earth Day, one area we think will have a huge impact on it, of course, of climate protection. And we have worked through how this is seen in a company like ours, and we have made our commitments that 2035 we're going to be net zero emission, and we are on our way. This year and last year we did 2 green bonds, which are the the first in our industry. We continue with a lot of changes in our infrastructure, because ultimately we need to take care of ourselves first before we tell everyone else, use our technology because it's power efficient, because over time, that's how we need to act. So very much committed to it and very much embedded in our strategy as we go to market, all this.
You mentioned digital inclusion. You're also playing a leading role in the Edison Alliance, which is taking on the 3.6 billion people. That's an extraordinary number, by the way, close to half of the globe's population. 3.6 billion people that don't have internet right now.
Yeah. Now, it started probably 10, 15 years ago. I worked with the Millennium Development Goals, and I learned that connectivity is a huge enabler. And when we then went into the process of the SDGs, I was part of that, and I was advocating for doing an 18th goal, which was mobility, broadband, and cloud for every citizen in the world. And as we all know, it's a 17 goal, so I lost. But as I said in the beginning, what has happened in the last 12 months, I think that every organization, constituency in the world has realized the importance of digitalization for bringing this society together, being equal, taking away inequalities in our society, give everybody a chance. So that's how it started. And what I'm working with the Edison Alliance is, of course, to bring together a multi-sector public-private organization together with the World Economic Forum to address this and now take care of these opportunities we have by using digitalization, because the risk is that we're going to use digitalization and we're going to leave even more people behind us in the world. So that is really what the organization is doing, and trying to see that we're multicultural, multi-sector, and private-public solving this problem. It's a multi-year program, focus on education, financial inclusion, as well as healthcare in the beginning, but over time probably more areas as well. So that's what we're doing. Take the opportunity to see that we get a more inclusive world, and it's affordable.
Hans, we're out of time, but I want to ask you just quickly before we go, because you're clearly not in Lake Nona. I'm not in Lake Nona. I wish we were. But it's a little chilly here in the Northeast today. But Verizon has a special relationship with Lake Nona. Can you tell us briefly what that is?
We have actually one of our first 5G mobile edge compute solutions deployed in Lake Nona, which is a collaboration together with our partner Amazon. So this is a bed that we are testing and piloting, and we have always been sort of working with certain verticals like fitness, hospitality, health in this area in order to see them using 5G in the right way. So yeah, we have a special relation.
That's great. Well, I look forward to getting down there to see it. Hans Vestberg, thanks so much. Fascinating vision of the future you've laid out for us. Appreciate you taking time to be with us at the Impact Forum. And let me hand it off to Dr. Deepak Chopra.
Thank you.
Please welcome Dr. Deepak Chopra, founder and chairman of Chopra Foundation and chairman of Chopra Global.
Thank you. It seems I'm the only one live in Lake Nona, and I'm thrilled to be here. Thank everyone, Gloria especially, for making this happen. So my talk is called Reinventing Humanity. Sounds like a very audacious title. And before I even address that, I wonder whether it's even worth reinventing humanity. When you talk to anthropologists, deep historians, and biologists, they tell us that if insects disappeared from this planet, all life on this planet would cease in 5 years. But if humans disappeared from this planet, all life would flourish in 5 years. We would go back to the Garden of Eden and restore homeostasis and balance in the ecosystem of existence, or the biosphere that is our physical body here, but is the world out there. Nevertheless, it's good to dream. And we must stretch more than we can reach or what's a dream for? So with that, let me show you my next slide. May I have the first slide, please? Okay, so all these years, the Chopra Foundation, which is our non-profit division in the Chopra family, has had this vision, helping create a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world. Can we reach a critical mass of personal transformation and social transformation to get there? Because in the absence of personal transformation, there is no social transformation. And it is social transformation and critical mass that ultimately governs everything that we call our perceived reality. So if you will go to the historical perspective of human existence, here's a very short summary of our place in the universe. According to current scientific models, the universe was born 15 billion years ago, a little less than that, maybe 14 billion years ago, as a result of something called the Big Bang. Now, just know it was neither big nor did it bang. The universe appeared as a small dot, less than the volume of a period at the end of a sentence, and now extends from where we are sitting to 47 billion light years away. Planet Earth is only 4.8 billion years old. Life began on this planet with microorganisms on the rims of volcanoes, known as the microorganisms were called chemolitho-autotrophic hyperthermophiles. Kind of a complex word. Chemo means chemical, litho, rocks, autotrophic. They were living organisms multiplying, replicating. Hyperthermophiles lived on the rims of volcanoes. We are their descendants. Humans have been here only for 200,000 years or less. And human culture has been around only for, say, 70,000 years when people started sharing stories. To be human is to have a story. No other species has stories. And the first stories were mythology, then religion, then philosophy, and now science. The agricultural revolution is only 12,000 years old, and the scientific revolution only 500, making huge advances in the last 100 years with the advent of theories like special relativity, general relativity, quantum mechanics, and so forth, which have given rise to technologies that we take for granted. The automobile only since 1880, airplanes since 1903, and now we have a helicopter on Mars. AM radio, 1920, television, 1927, smartphones only recently, and now suddenly artificial intelligence, augmented reality, biometrics, the convergence of information technologies. So you would think we're making a lot of progress, and are we? The next slide shows what it means to be human today. What does it mean to be human? War, terrorism, global violence, social, political, economic, racial, gender injustice, climate change, pandemics of chronic and acute illness, and a huge toll of human suffering. Huge toll of human suffering. This is what it means to be human today. So, is there any hope? Can we actually create a new world? Can we create a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world? And what will it take? So today, social scientists are talking about something called emergence. And what we are told is emergence happens when there's shared vision, when there's maximum diversity of talent, education. So let's assume maximum diversity of educators, humanitarians, scientists, technologists, visionaries, poets, songwriters, movie makers, all kinds of storytellers. You have maximum diversity of experience and talent, an emotional and spiritual bond amongst those who have the shared vision, complement everybody's strengths, total transparency, open systems, incubate in the stillness of being, establish smart goals. Smart, I mean, stretch more than you can reach, measure everything, agree with your team about what you need to achieve, keep a record and keep times limits, something magical happens. A critical mass of consciousness emerges that can cause a shift. And this is our only hope. Otherwise, I think as a species, we will go down as the one species that caused extinction of life on this planet. The last extinction of life on this planet was 65 million years ago when a meteorite fell on our planet. It was the capacity of an atomic bomb, and a dominant species, dinosaurs, that roamed this planet were wiped out in 1 hour. Today we have the capacity to do that 20 times over, if not more. So we need to reinvent humanity at many levels. And the practical application of this is that today we are seeing, right here in Lake Nona, for example, we are seeing the convergence of information technologies of all kinds. We just heard from the CEO of Verizon, but we have so many interesting innovation technologies happening right here. I would say Lake Nona is becoming the hub for the convergence of technology that will guide the future of well-being, not only for ourselves, but for the planet. But the areas we need to reinvent also include energy, total independence of fossil fuels, food that comes from the earth that is rich in the planetary microbiome, which can resurrect even extinct species, but at least bring about the restoration of the ecosystem and the biosphere, because the biosphere in here and the biosphere out there is the same. It's no difference. The air is our breath. The earth is recycling as our body. The seas and waters as our circulation. The stars gave us the atoms that are in our body, but were forged in the crucible of burning supernova. We need new sources for transportation. Right here in Lake Nona, actually now transportation is automated and is getting there, is going to be fossil fuel. We need to create new materials, right from the raw material of matter, which is atoms, particles, gene expression. Today we have the capacity to create any kind of material, trillions of proteins, just by understanding genomics and epigenetics and all the things that modify the expression of genes into proteins. So trillions of proteins, and trillions of food products, all coming from the source, which is the earth itself, but also coming from the source of life. Genes and microbes and genetic information. But all of this will not make a difference, even a dent, unless there's an internal shift in us. Can we embark on the known technologies of conflict resolution? And that has to start with us. If we have no peace in our heart, how can we create peace in the world? So peace can only be created by those who are peaceful, not necessarily by peace Nobel laureates. We need to empower everyone economically, so democratize the ability to raise capital and entrepreneurship for everyone all over the globe. We need to democratize well-being, create cryptocurrencies and blockchains, and help people with all the technologies we have, including artificial intelligence, to uplift their mental well-being and their physical well-being as a consequence. We need to make joy, freedom, and abundance and plenitude the future for all humanity. Otherwise, social and economic injustice will prevail and continue to cause problems all over the world. And finally, we need to ask ourselves, what is fundamental reality? Today, everybody in the scientific world conforms to a philosophy in science called naive realism, that the world is independent of us. The world exists independent of us. The world is independent of our consciousness and our conscious behaviors, because the current model suggests that consciousness is an emergent property of matter, but it is becoming very clear that matter is a symbolic representation of human experience. It's called matter, but it's actually a perceptual activity within ourselves that is subject to revision. And when we understand that consciousness is the fundamental ground of all creation, then information, energy, matter, space-time, everything becomes an expression of consciousness as an experience. Human constructs created what we call the physical world, but constructs themselves were created in consciousness. So if we can harness the powers of our collective consciousness and go to the source of all experience, which is infinite consciousness, then our future evolution will become the creative play of consciousness. Nothing more is needed right now than the creative play of consciousness, so we can create or hope to create a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world. If joy is not the end point, then what's the point? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deepak. I think while I was reflecting on your conversation, today's Earth Day, talk about reinventing the planet. You talked about planetary microbiome and the rewilding of cities. What do you think is a solution for climate change?
Well, there are many solutions for climate change. First of all, all the alternative energies that are being harnessed right now. But if we really want to address the root problem for climate change, we have to resurrect the planetary microbiome. The microbiome is the genetic information of the planet. So if you go under the surface of the soil, let's say in the Amazon, 1 teaspoon of soil has more microbial diversity than the entire surface of the planet. So let's bring out that soil. Let's use natural fertilizers, which are recycled excrement of animals and living beings. Let's use that energy, that information, to restore the ecosystem. Plants are the source of life on this planet. Plants derive their energy from the sun, and all energy on this planet is photons. And photons are the symbolic expression of all life on this planet. So the key, in my opinion, is to restore the microbiome, not only in the human biology, which is 99% of our genetic information, but in the ecology or the biology of the living earth. If we do that, I think we will see a spontaneous reversal. We had glimpses of a little bit of that during COVID. As we went into our cages, then birds started to sing. Even in polluted cities, you could see the Himalayas from Punjab, from 400 miles away. Fish were returning to dead lakes, even in Venice. And people were breathing better in Bangalore. Right. So nature was saying something. Humans, go back to your cages. When you come back, little less hubris, more humility, and recognize that you don't control the universe controls you. And respect Earth as your mother, and your mother will take care of you.
I have one more, maybe two more questions. One is, I love what you say, don't confuse yourself for your selfie. And your last point is the nature of reality. When loneliness is an epidemic of our current times, what is your message, how one can deal with this?
The only way to deal with loneliness, depression, the pandemic of suicide in the world is love in action. Love without action is irrelevant. Action without love is meaningless. When you start with love in action as the primary motivation for everything you do, the whole world is on your side. You know this from our chatbot and Love in Action at the Chopra Foundation, how so many people are benefiting by just giving each other attention, affection, appreciation, and acceptance. If you can do that for another being, you will make them happy. And when they are happy, you will be happy.
We have less than a minute, so I have one more question. We are both here in Lake Nona. I think we look at this as one of the few cities in the world which can really set the standards by which others are measured. What is your thoughts on how can we reinvent humanity here at Lake Nona?
Well, Lake Nona is a perfect example of diversity, talent, innovation, creativity, complementing strengths. It's the perfect hub for emergence right here with the medical school, with the integrated practices. Now we're going to have a Chopra Mind Body Zone here and so many things happening here. Watch out. Stay focused on Lake Nona because this is going to be the hub of a global Sangha. Sangha means global community. So referring to the wisdom traditions of the East, they say take refuge in the Sangha, which means take refuge in a caring community, take refuge in higher consciousness, don't think only of yourself, and take refuge in service and spiritual practice. We can do this here, and we will do it here.
Thank you, Deepak. And with that, I want to thank Gloria, the Lake Nona Impact Forum, which has been amazing service to the world with all the knowledge, and welcoming the next panel, which is going to be Sustainable Health and Equity session. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ash Shahada. I'm the National Sector Leader for Healthcare and Life Sciences at KPMG. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be with you today to introduce this session. You know, today we're really going to talk about a very important topic that's near and dear to my heart and one that we're very committed to at KPMG. And it's really about helping to turn health inequities into the opportunity to create health equities in our communities. You know, we have a great opportunity today to share some ideas, more importantly, and I want to take this opportunity to make this a call to action for all of us today. You're going to be really joined with some amazing speakers. The first one is going to be, one of our amazing partners in this industry with the Morehouse School of Medicine. And you're going to hear about the National Resiliency Network. And it's going to be amazing to hear the opportunities that you can get involved in. The second one is going to be with an organization called CHC, and that is creating healthier communities. And it's an opportunity to really engage at the local community level. And finally, you're also going to hear some of the insights that we've seen in supporting the federal government with the COVID resiliency program around antibody therapies. So it's going to be a really exciting day. I'm just privileged to be here with you today and to share the insights. And hopefully we're going to leave today motivated and ready to make a difference.
Please welcome Todd Ellis, Principal, Health and Government Solutions, KPMG. And joining him is Dr. Valerie Montgomery Rice, President and Dean, Morehouse School of Medicine, Constance Hunter, Chief Economist, KPMG, and Tom Bognano, President and CEO, CHC.
All right, well, thank you so much. And I'm excited to be able to moderate a session with some esteemed panelists, some thought leaders when it comes to health equity, health inequity, but also the economic impact that health inequity can have on the population. So before I start, I know with COVID-19, it has had a devastating impact not only on our country, but the world. But it has also showcased the devastating impacts on certain populations, whether that's African Americans, Latinx, Asian Pacific Islanders, etc. And while we're presenting the information in front of you, you can look at some of these numbers and it's self-telling. Now, but keep in mind, as you look at these numbers and you look at these stats, One thing that I want to say leading into this discussion is we as a country, this is not the first time that we're having a discussion about health inequality. If you can remember the devastating hurricane in New Orleans, the country bore witness to how that had an impact on certain populations. Now we have COVID-19. And again, the world, the country, they see the devastating impact. But it's a call to action. And as we have this discussion, I want all of us to think about what's different now. How are we going to move the needle? Let's not wait for the next pandemic to really address this fundamental issue of health inequity. It's too important. So let's start the conversation. My first question is for Dr. Montgomery Rice. Thanks for joining. And as president of a very prestigious medical school, and as the leader of the National COVID-19 Resiliency Network, the first of its kind in this country, the first of its kind. Can you talk a little bit about where you see opportunities when it comes to curbing health inequity? Because I think that's very important. Again, we've seen this before. This is nothing new, but where are the opportunities, Dr. Montgomery Rice, based on what you're seeing with COVID-19?
Thank you, Todd, and I'm excited to be here with my other colleagues to talk about this important issue. And I am going to begin my answer to your question with what we must do is, first of all, understand the historical context of how we got here. And so I'm going to ask them to bring up my one slide, the first slide, and I hope you all can see it. This is a slide that really is sort of the work that we've been doing. And we started this work, you all, first looking at addressing the correlation between structural racism and health disparities. And this was a paper that we published a while ago in our National Center for Primary Care. But most recently, our leaders started to gather data. And all you got to do is look at the spatial references. You don't have to understand what every little dot stands for. But what you see on the left-hand side, you all, is the proportion of enslaved persons in a county in 1860. And then what your next two graphs show you is the COVID-19 cases per 100,000 and the deaths in the next one per 100,000. This was as of September. And so we started to look at this because we know that there are structural, there are systemic, there are political policies that have all influenced and influence this spatial referencing here when it relates to why we find ourselves at this place and space at this time. So when we applied for our grant through HHS for the COVID-19 Resiliency Network, which was a $40 million grant that HHS gave out, we applied for that grant understanding that we needed to break the cycle, that we had structural barriers, that we had systemic barriers, and some of those were politically motivated. And they all really centered a lot, you all, around the social determinants of health. So when you look at what this $40 million grant does, it addresses those things, but it addresses it from a grassroots effort. So it is a partnership with grassroots organizations in rural and urban and minority underserved communities, because those are our trusted advisors. Those are those trusted entities that are going to tell us what's happening on the ground. And what they told us, you all, that they needed accurate information, information that was culturally and linguistically appropriately developed such that their communities could understand that information. They needed it accessible in multiple languages. So they needed it accessible at any time. And they needed it in different forms. They needed it not just on the internet, but they needed it in paper format. They needed it delivered to their door. They also said, once you give us information, make sure that our voice is in that information, that you understand some of the reticence that we may have in accepting your recommendations. And we wanted to know where we could go be tested, and we wanted testing in our community. So we put a GPS navigator on the site so that anybody can put their zip code in, you all, and it tells them where they can go get tested and also now where they can get vaccinated. They also wanted to see evaluations of the effectiveness of any intervention, whether it was, did it make a difference that we gave the information in 8 different languages? Did it make a difference that we had this GPS platform? And then finally, they wanted to know how we would leverage this information source for a sustainable impact once we got beyond the pandemic. Because if you looked at what happened in 1860 to the pattern that we see now, we know that there are structural barriers, systemic barriers that are continuing to impact health disparities. And unless we address those, we're never going to get to health equity.
Dr. Montgomery Rice, you made some great points, and I'm going to come back in a couple of minutes to talk about some of the things you said as we move beyond COVID, as we turn the corner, because it's not done. Once we turn that corner, there's so much work to be done when it comes to health equity. And that leads to my next question. Tom, I know you work with community-based organizations throughout the country. A lot of these community-based organizations, they are the boots on the ground that Dr. Montgomery Rice talked about. Tom, you have seen what works, what doesn't work so well. But could you kind of talk to us a little bit about, first, where the collaboration is needed? And what else can we do from a community to help curb health inequity?
Great. Thank you, Todd. And it's a real pleasure to have an opportunity to address this obviously very important topic. And I'm so appreciative already to hear Dr. Montgomery Rice, because much of what I'm going to share with you, she's already articulated. And it is so important that we begin to speak with one voice in this country on this topic. But to start with, you're talking about collaboration, successful collaborations. Consistent with everything we've heard today, especially and then looking at the events of the past year, indeed the past week, one thing I think we can all agree upon is that successful health equity collaboration has to always be centered on the voices, the needs, the concerns of the people at the community level, what Dr. Montgomery Rice called the grassroots organizations, because in the end, they're the only ones that can tell us what achieving health equity actually looks like for them. If we don't know how that community defines their own success, then collaborations are incomplete, and we do need those collaborations. The second point, and again, she hit this hard, and I'm very appreciative, to have an effective collaboration from day one, all the players at that community level have to recognize the historical roots of inequities. We need to name racism where and when we see it. However, it's important now, you're talking about a call to action. We need to move beyond declarative advocacy, beyond conversations and good marketing. Now is the time for us all to be involved in developing clear plans of action involving all those stakeholders at the community level to start to ensure system change that's going to create equity in all areas of society. And to do that, we need health equity collaborators to have improved access to and understanding of the appropriate use of data and analytics. Again, another theme that's been so consistent today. That data is critical in showing the impact of inequity to policymakers and those in power, and why addressing health equity now will deliver a powerful ROI, not the least of which would be increased life expectancy and greater community resiliency. Real-time data is needed right now to uncover where the most critical opportunities are, so we can target interventions on those specific conditions that drive most of the glaring health disparity gaps. Todd, if it's okay, I'll give you a couple of quick examples to provide context. Just two, CHC, Creating Healthier Communities. We've been coordinating a collaborative effort and a health equity study in central Indiana over the past 2 years with funding and support from Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield Foundation. Now, time doesn't permit to discuss the findings, but I can share with you quickly 3 key learnings that are going to be applicable to any community and any collaboration. Number 1, we need to see a change in how investments are being made by public and private funding institutions. Specifically, we need to see more investments in long-term upstream solutions that truly address the root causes of social determinants of health. Millions of dollars are spent in this country every year on direct service programs and immediate needs, but comparatively too little on upstream solutions such as policy change. A great illustration of this is, according to the Trust for America's Health, in 2020, $3.6 trillion was spent in this country on health, but less than 3% of that spending was directed towards public health and prevention. There are many real-time examples. I'll just, again, share one very quickly. You could look at Cleveland's Metro Health System and specifically their Institute of Hope. They're making the shift to upstream funding. They've gone beyond expanding their care, beyond their walls, and as much the same as what Morehouse is doing, to build very strong community partnerships powered by targeted investments in upstream solutions that allow them to do things with their partners like create new multi-unit housing structures or providing free internet access to low-income neighborhoods across Cleveland. Finally, 2 things. Funders need to begin to invest in the capacity of community-based organizations in the tracking and reporting of output and outcome measures, and then in calling for a common methodology in how we collect data to measure disparities among those organizations, and then we can scale effective programs. That's exactly what's happening with Morehouse with the COVID Resiliency Network database that's being rolled out across the country, and I'm so excited about it. One more thing, we need to see more of a systems thinking approach to collaboration from the perspective of civic infrastructure. It's not enough anymore to just fund standalone disease prevention and treatment programs. If you want to solve health equity, you've got to invest also in health behaviors, quality of life, safety, and confronting racism.
Tom, thank you so much, and thanks for the passion behind what you stated. I mean, you hit the nail on the head several times, and I think we're hearing a common theme. But also when you talk about health equity, we got to look at the economic impact, right? I like to think that when we're all healthy, everybody does good. And hopefully that's not being naive, but we all do good from a mental health well-being, and we all do good from an economic well-being. So I'm going to ask Constance, when you talk about or think about health equity, and you think about the economics behind it, first, why is it so important that we get to a state where health equity is good for everyone? But more importantly, how do we even measure success of health equity and the economics behind it? So please.
Todd, thank you so much. And it's just an honor to be here with this esteemed panel today talking about this really important topic. So there are multiple dimensions to this. We know historically, for example, when penicillin was invented, we had fewer deaths from disease and people recovered and got back to work faster, right? So if we have healthier outcomes and we have greater equity, then we know that people are going to be sick less frequently. When they get sick, they're going to be sick for a shorter amount of time, and there's measurable economic impact. So, modeling suggests that it's between 0.5 percentage point and 1.5 percentage points per year of GDP. That's the cost of health inequity. So those are the direct costs. Then there's indirect costs. If you don't have preventative health, then you end up spending more money down the road to deal with health problems that could have been prevented. Ergo, it's called preventative health. This is really, really important. And just to give you one statistic of inequality, African-American children, infant mortality rate is 4.8 times higher. 3.8 times higher. It's an astounding statistic, 3.8 times higher than for non-Hispanic whites. That's unconscionable. It really we can't put up with this anymore. And then finally, there are impacts, and I'll bring this up also because it's Earth Day, there are impacts from environmental inequity. So if you look at neighborhoods that tend to be poorer neighborhoods, what we see is less density of green spaces, greater industrial activity in those neighborhoods, and that what this leads to is higher temperatures in those neighborhoods, greater expense of using air conditioning, and higher cases of asthma. And then finally, of course, there's mental health, right? And there are significant mental health costs to racism and to health inequality in and of itself, right? If you are worried about your children getting proper health care, there is a huge cost to that. So as I said, this cuts across many dimensions, and it's something that everybody in our economy is a stakeholder in, whether you're a corporate, whether you're part of a community, whether you're a neighbor. All of these factors impact all of us, and it's really we have the capacity to do something about it. And I'm glad that we're having this conversation more and more.
So I have another question for the panel, and I'm gonna start with Dr. Montgomery Rice because you are a clinician. So this discussion is not new. We saw this with Hurricane Katrina. We saw this, that showcased a certain level of inequity. And now the pandemic. But between that space, certain segments of the population have been dealing with diabetes, hypertension, infant mortality rates. What's different now? I have to ask myself, we have the experts, we have you guys, the panel, talking about the experts. What do we really need to do so that we're not 5 years down the road having the same discussion, that we're looking at these stats that are just, they're mind-boggling, that they really are. And we're such advanced, we talk about digital technology and how we use those tools, but it just seems like there's a certain segment of the population that are not thought about. So I'll first with you, Dr. Montgomery Rice, and Constance or Tom, if you want to add in, please do so.
So we feel and hear your frustration, and as an MD, I unfortunately get to live it every day. We are continuing to see right now the disproportionate distribution of vaccinations in the country. You see African Americans at a lower percentage of receiving vaccines compared to others, even though we know African Americans and Latinx have the highest burden of the disease. But I also bring you back to something we talked about, the social determinants. The social determinants of health matter. And also who are the messengers? And I'll give you this example of maternal mortality. African American women have the highest rate of maternal mortality than any other racial ethnic group in this country, and we are really at the level of a third world country. And even when you control for socioeconomic factors, meaning that a person of my financial means can go in to get ready to deliver my baby compared to someone who has 3 times less financial means. When I go into that healthcare environment, I may be treated differently, okay, because of some type of ism or because of some type of conscious or unconscious bias. So cultural competence and cultural relevancy matters in that healthcare provider. And one of the things that we're doing at Morehouse School of Medicine, which we would welcome partnership, is that we are trying to diversify the healthcare workforce, because we know that when you look at the 22,000 students who went to medical school last year, we're still at about 14 to 15% of those people being African American. And if you look at African American males, you're talking about 600 out of 22,000 people who went to medical school last year being Black males. Now you tell me, how is that going to pan out 4 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, when we are trying to provide care to those individuals in underserved or even non-underserved communities, because cultural competence matters. So one call to action is to continue to diversify the healthcare workforce, not just at the physician level, but at the nursing level, at any type of healthcare engagement level, because we know that that leads to cultural competence.
Yes.
That leads to the opportunity to have impact and increase in compliance and the quality of care for those individual patients.
Thank you so much, Dr. Montgomery Rice. And again, I love the passion, and you make some very good points here. Tom, Constance, do you want to add into?
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to echo what Dr. Montgomery Rice said, which is that we need diversity, and so we see this in the economics profession, which is woefully undiverse in terms of representation of women and representation of people of color. The American Economic Association is making better advances at this. The National Association for Business Economics has started the Diversity Scholars Program, and we know that we have to reach down not just into the college level, but into the high school and grade school level, because if you're not building that pipeline of people who want to study the economics profession, then we're not going to have the proper representation, and we're not going to have the right policies in place, right? We're not going to have broad enough consideration. We're starting to see it. The Fed is starting to take this into consideration. When they consider full employment, they are considering broader employment measures for everybody within the economy. And it's high time that we start thinking about how we can be much more inclusive and not giving up until we have much more inclusive outcomes. And that is, I think, starts with representation in the profession and an awareness of what the metrics are that we need to hit.
Yeah, and Tom, before you speak, I'm hearing a theme here, inclusion. And again, I'm very passionate about this, but inclusion and looking, I like to say looking left and right to make sure that inclusion is there, in every profession, because Constance, I heard some of your numbers, the low representation of people of color. Dr. Montgomery Rice, you gave some stats that just kind of sank my heart a little bit with infant mortality rates, et cetera. So we have to look left and right. We have to understand what's going on around us and how being inclusive is going to have so many positive impacts, just very broadly. So Tom, please, I don't know if you wanted to add some comments.
I do, but very quickly, I mean, you're right. It's a common theme. You're talking about inclusion and all these other industries. Well, Todd, as you know, my organization for over 60 years, we represent thousands of the top flight nonprofit health organizations in this country, communities of faith, social justice organizations. And that's another important space where you're going to have to really press hard to see diversification and the real understanding of what inclusion means, because these are the organizations that are on the street. They're in the communities. They're serving the people in need. They have to be able to have this transformation too. But let me just share one other thing too, that because I think what your question is really asking is, look, what's working now when it didn't work in the past? How can we not be where we're going to be in 5 years, looking forward? I would just say this. I think we're all pretty much familiar with the precepts of what's been called scientific philanthropy, the correlating of philanthropic giving in programs and policy to social and health outcomes on a large scale. That's been around for over 100 years. But that philosophy hasn't always, while it's been compelling, hasn't always been able to deliver effectively on generating solutions for systemic issues like racism or health equity. I believe, I'm optimistic, the reason why that can work today where it's failed before is because technology is finally caught up with that philosophy. And that's been a constant theme. KPMG is a leader in this area, but there are companies, there are leaders listening today right now that can make this happen. They have the technology where we didn't before, and that data and the understanding of data is the oxygen that breathes life into social solutions. So I know you're talking about a call for action. We need to call on companies, and I know KPMG is doing this, but we need others to make that technology and that data available to all community-based organizations and to do so cost effectively.
Tom, you brought up a good point. I'm going to ask Constance and Dr. Montgomery Rice while we have 4 minutes remaining. Let's not rush through this. but we have some very brilliant minds on the line today. We do. Constance, as somebody listening into this conversation and hearing the passion that we each have to make things better for true health equity, what would be your call to action to individuals listening in on this segment right now?
So first of all, I think we really need a Medicare for all healthcare option. We need access to healthcare. And then, for providers, for health insurers and providers, one thing that happened during the pandemic, it was a catalyst to bring telehealth to a large number of people, and that improves access. And when I talk to CEOs in that space, some of them are saying, well, we're not sure if we're going to keep reimbursing it at the same level after the pandemic. That is the wrong approach. We need everything we can to continue having access at this level, and having telehealth improves access. So those are just two things that if we did those two things alone, we would see improved outcomes. And then I guess I'm going to go for three. I go back to this thing that it's all about pipeline. We have to reach down and create a broad pipeline so that we have representation across all fields, right? But especially amongst policymakers and medical healthcare professionals.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Montgomery Rice, please, what is your call to action for the many minds who are listening in on this session, please?
So for all of these great minds, I would say 3 Ps. The first is people. Open up your heart and your mind to see people, to see individuals, and presume good intent until proven otherwise. Assume that everyone has value to add until proven otherwise. The second thing is planning, and it comes back to the people. Who are you inviting to the table to come up with solutions? It cannot just be the great minds that you know. You have to reach out into the community and pull those people in who are living the experiences every day to come up with the solution. And then the last one would be policy. Policy at the local, state, and federal level that allows us to build systemic opportunities that will permeate throughout, from a federal level to a state level to a local level, at the municipality level, such that when we are no longer here, there is sustainability of the intervention, and the impact of the intervention or the solution is felt for generations to come. Policy is what does that. Mm-hmm. And we cannot do that without the people, and we cannot do that without inviting people to the table when we are planning.
Thank you so much. I know we have about less than a minute left, but first I want to thank the panelists. I think you can all agree this was a very passionate session, and I think it's going to lay the groundwork for even a more passionate discussion in the in-person event. So I'm excited about that. But more importantly, if you're listening in, you heard from the experts. You know what we have to do to change this. We cannot afford 5 years from now to be having the same discussion. Let's not make that happen, okay? So with that, I know the next session, I'm going to pass it over to Garen to talk about how COVID-19 has changed the workforce from a mental health landscape. Thank you all. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you.
Please welcome Garen Staglin, founder and chairman One Mind, and Brian Moynihan, chairman and CEO, Bank of America.
Brian, it's great to see you, even if it's only virtual. At last February's Nona Impact Forum, we were together in person in Orlando and had a discussion about Bank of America's focus on mental health and why it's a strategic priority for you. Shortly after, of course, the pandemic hit and the world changed. The impact on mental health globally has been significant, and you and many other employers have seen a dramatic change and increase in anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress, as is shown on this chart entitled The Next Wave. First question for you is, how has this reinforced mental health as a strategic priority for you and Bank of America?
Okay, Aaron, it's good to be with you again, even if virtual. And you think back, that was what a difference in just a relatively short period of time we've seen. And I think that's reflective of what our teammates face. When you have a big company like ours, 200,000 plus teammates, 600,000 family members behind them, 40,000 people have kids, 80,000 kids, and think of what happened last year with the kids being, put out of schools to be educated from home, and the stress that put on people. People worried about getting sick, people who got sick worried about getting treated, people worried about getting tested resources. So our job was to step in and just try to provide all the support we could. And so, it was support around all those sort of real life things. If those teammates are in good shape and can do a great job to customers, that's great. But also with support with resources, and we could talk about the types and things we did, but resource around mental health support and to help them talk to someone, at the same time that they were doing a great job. But if they did a great job for their families and themselves, they could do a great job for the clients.
Yeah, it's certainly that whole that checking in is really important, because we lost the water cooler or the cafeteria and those chances to be with each other. So those opportunities are great for people to be able to cope. And look, we know that the levels of anxiety, stress, and PTS are and will remain at elevated levels, even as we aggressively are vaccinating against the virus. As a result, more and more of the employers that we are working with are recognizing the importance of mental health in the workplace. Our members are now over 100 employers and partners, and have been especially proactive, including new approaches in mental health training, enforcing days away from email, establishing mental health ambassadors, which are peers in their organizations, virtual meetings to help, as you referenced, Brian, and having leaders tell their own personal stories about the challenges of pandemic life, and reinforcing this term that's really important now: it's okay not to be okay. Bank of America has been a leader in responding to the pandemic on behalf of its employees. Can you share with us now some more specifics about how you've been handling these programs, new resources, and benefits you've implemented?
Oh, sure, Garen. And you mentioned a lot of things that are critical, but you got to go back to that. Everything in life changed. As we said before, you're home working, from someplace you haven't worked. You've lost your entire normalcy to your day. Commute to work, people at work. You engage with stuff. You talk about stuff. You see your boss personally. You work with your team that you're working on something personally. All that went away, and on top of that, you're expected still to work, and you don't see your clients and your customers if you're in a customer-facing business. So all that happened. So what did we do? We had to step in and think about it. And Sherry Bronstein, who works as the human resources head in our company, is terrific and works with your organization. You've been terrific to be a partner. We had sort of had a lead on this. We're doing a lot of things, but they really came to fore in a crisis. So the first thing you had to do is, philosophically, how do you think about approaching a crisis? We thought about it teammate-centric, customer-centric, and then we let the rest come behind it. And so in the teammate-centric, first thing, all the high-risk people, we got off the line immediately. We then immediately started to deploy resources for the other people so they could then get home. So the commuting and the issue about being in public and being exposed. Now the branches, those teammates have worked every day, and we've had a number of other teammates that had to work every day in work. And if you go back to the early stage of the crisis, we had to get them protection. So we had to get the barriers and the gloves and masks, things that people take for granted now. Go back to April 1st last year, that was like a scramble to find. So protect the teammates, then inform them and get them testing resources. But then you had to go to the mental side of this. And so we did one thing that I think served us well, or two or three things. One is we said, we're going to have no layoffs, no changes. Everybody has a job from now to year end. And for the vast majority, for our teammates, that basically said, at least I know I have a good job, a good paycheck, and something that's mentally stabilized. The second thing we did is say we knew people were going to have parents coming out of care centers because they had to empty themselves if they wanted to see their parents. Then you had kids. And so we made a decision that I think was unique, where we said you can hire somebody to take care of your kids or your parents in your home for $100 a day, and we'll pay you for it. And so that was a step change in the amount of a child care benefit, because we give money, people can put their kids in child care and pay for it. Those weren't available. And so immediately you just basically took the heat down in the household mentally, because the caregivers for the kids who were working were both caregivers for the kids working, and by the way, they were a tutor, an IT instructor, a hallway monitor, a lunch preparer, because usually that went on somewhere else, and suddenly they're doing that. And by the way, they're talking to clients 8 hours, they're doing their work, and so. And remember, we had tremendous risk in the markets too. So those teammates who work in risk and legal and compliance, they had to be as on their toes as we've ever been. And so that 3.7 million days later, I think was one of the cathartic things we did, and our teammates responded well to it. They used it. They enabled them to sort of feel stronger about their position. And then we went to those who were suffering from, all the things that you mentioned. We had to provide, and we went right away to. We'd always gone to unlimited phone consultations, 6 free before you had to get to the diagnosis level of things we talked about structurally as to how you make these programs more available. All that went away. You can have as many phone or teledoc interfaces you want on mental health. Just go have them, and the numbers doubled, and people used it, and that talking and checking in. And then the last and most importantly also was to get them involved in the conversations that were going on around mental health with our experts talking about what they should be thinking about with their bosses. And then when the racial social justice issues, we had a lot of conversation around that to give a chance for people to engage, at a human level, even though they were doing through this torture process of screens.
Well, that's terrific, Brian. And the financial well-being is a critical part of all aspects of well-being, right? Mental health and physical health and financial health all work together, and you certainly address those in these programs. Let me turn to another topic here. One Mind at Work has been working with several employers and financial institutions and investors, including Bank of America and the World Economic Forum, to develop a narrative and/or metrics around neurodiversity, this new additional topic alongside of racial, gender, and sexual orientation, and bringing workplace mental health into the environmental, social, and governance, i.e. ESG, investment criteria. We're grateful for Bank of America's participation in this task force, and I'll be sharing more about this effort later this year, along with Arnaud Berneret of the World Economic Forum at Lake Nona's Impact Forum, taking place in person, we all hope, on November 3 to 5. But Brian, Bank of America is a recognized leader in and champion for ESG, and you chair the International Business Council, which published specific guidelines for reporting last year. This brings me to 2 questions for you, and I know we can make these the subject of a full hour discussion. But in our remaining time, let me ask you a couple of questions. So, why is the role of a company to create social good along with financial results? And then after the year we've had, why should a financial services company be concerned about employee health and well-being as it relates to your business and investment strategy?
So let's the broader question, which is, why should the private sector, why should companies be thinking about stakeholder capitalism or capitalism, that is the new capitalism, ESG? There's a lot of different things, and the answer is, we're only successful as a bank, especially as society is. We were formed by the oldest part of our bank 200 plus years ago. A bunch of people sat down and said, we need money for our community, to support our community. They made a bank, and that happened all over the country and the world to form these banks. And so, we're as strong as our community. Well, the strength of the community is not just a pure, economic strength. It's also the arts. It's also, the opportunities in the communities. It's also good housing and good things. So you have to have a broader view. And we have to be careful to make sure we do what's good for our shareholders and for society. We call that the genius of the and. So the stakeholder capitalism metrics, which a group of us worked on, the big 4 accounting firms and others, measure the path of progress for a company against the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. Included in those goals are human capital goals. There's 4 pillars: the SDGs, people, planet, prosperity, and principles of governance. And so the people is a human capital, so it's diversity, and diversity along all measurements. There's supplementary metrics to have diversity not only of race and gender, but also of disabled and of all types, including mental enablements and other things. And I think it's important to have all sectors of society representing the company. And so that's sort of getting capitalism aligned. And the simple answer is, Garen, It's going to take so much money to make the environmental change happen, to make some of these social issues. It has to come from the private sector. And we have the ingenuity, we have the money, we have the capital to make it happen. Now, when you come to what we're talking about, which is mental wellness and health, you got to have all the programs, how you treat your employees, so you keep the turnover down. And then there's specialized programs, and I'm proud of one that's gone on. Frankly, we got it from a company we bought a number of years ago, where we employ people with mental disabilities, or I don't like that word, but that's the category it's put in. And right now we're seeing two levels of that. It's things like autism, which has one aspect, and it's also things of other aspects that. And it's a social services and it's a job, but they do great work for us, and we are able to employ hundreds and hundreds of people who then can live on their own and have families. And frankly, their parents, which is often a concern, know that their kids are going to have a good job and a way to earn a living, even if they aren't here anymore. And that's one of the things it provides. And so we're trying to do it. And we have found opening up along the autism scale and some of the areas has brought us tremendous talent to the team that we didn't think we have. So the metrics measure it, but the real question is what are the programs to make the metrics come to life, and our team's done some great jobs on that stuff.
Yes, it's clear that that neurodiversity, that category, really allows everyone to bring their whole self to work. And you cite those examples of autism, and there's other examples of Asperger's and others. So I think this is an effort that will gain momentum as we work together to make that happen.
And there's two things that, Garen, there's obviously the base mental wellness of all the teammates that we're talking about, and what One Mind's been so great at and helping us sort of think about. But there's also the value that the teammates who work with some of these teammates, to see them be successful, how that makes them feel. And that's part of the inclusive society you want. So it's not just that we do it just for them. It's also the teammates want to say, wait, I want to work for a company that can take people who might need to have a different kind of work around and be employed. We'll work with social services agencies, and this would be people who don't have the mental level that the average employee has. But you get them a great job, and they commute to school and work it out. The other employees like that, and that's kind of the interesting thing. So there's a wellness aspect to this that goes beyond I'm well and I'm good. It's if a company is doing good things, I can feel good about that company, and I can help do those things on a volunteer or engagement basis, which is also special. And so it's just it's really constructive, and it's really good, and it really reaches to every edge of society.
Well, look, the vaccinations are beginning to allow us to return to a new normal, but I think we all hope and recognize that there are no vaccines for mental illness. And so our efforts in collaboration with you, Brian, and other leading employers are far from over on workplace mental health, as the new stress levels of returning to work are going to add new challenges. And I hope all of you enjoyed this brief news update on our last conversation. Brian, thank you again for your leadership and insights and the commitment you've made to workplace mental health. It's my pleasure now to turn the stage over to Renee Femling, who's performed so brilliantly last year at the KPMG, Lake House, and Dr. Francis Collins for a conversation on brain health, art, and healing, along with a special performance. Thank you all for listening.
Please welcome Renee Fleming, world-renowned soprano, advocate for arts education, music therapy, and music neuroscience research, and Dr. Francis Collins, Director, National Institutes of Health.
Hello, I'm Renee Fleming. Thank you all for joining us virtually for this year's Lake Nona Impact Forum. The Impact Forum has a commitment to arts and healing, and I'm glad to be returning to you all to continue this discussion after previously attending the Impact Forum in 2019 and 2020. Singing with Rudy Tanzi, Chris Mann, and Chloe Flower was in fact one of the last performances for me before the early pandemic shutdowns. And I look forward to being together in person again at the next conference in Florida. I'm delighted to be joined today by my good friend, Dr. Francis Collins, Director of the National Institutes of Health, to discuss arts and health prescriptions for the future. Francis and I have spearheaded Sound Health, a partnership between the NIH, the Kennedy Center, and the National Endowment for the Arts. So, Francis, our collaboration began when we first met at a dinner party a few years ago with 3 Supreme Court justices, and you took out your guitar. This was social cohesion in action. And we had a wonderful sing along. Can you walk us through what's happened with our collaboration and the field since then?
Well, sure. And Renee, it's great to join you for this Lake Nona event. And again, I wish we were all there together, but this is going to be the best we can do right now. That was quite a dinner party. That was, by the way, it was the Saturday night after the Supreme Court had announced their decision on gay marriage, as well as their decision on Obamacare. And at the dinner were Scalia, Ginsburg, and Kennedy, who had been basically the main definers of what had happened. And it was a little tense at first, but you know, music between what you sang, what I sang, what they all sang together, somehow it changed the dynamic. Well, there's a lesson that we could talk about in the course of this conversation, how music has the ability to bring people together, even at times where they didn't quite feel like it. Goodness knows we need more togetherness right now. So you and I had a conversation after that about our shared interest in the way in which music and the brain have a lot to say to each other, literally, to sing to each other, and how we might kind of come up with a strategy for a research program that would further enhance what we already know about music therapy as a means of healing. I got excited about that. I went to some of my colleagues at NIH and discovered there are a lot of people interested in that. We formed a working group at NIH across no less than 23 institutes, and everybody got excited about taking part in something new here. And it got called Sound Health, and we joined up with the Kennedy Center and the National Endowment of the Arts and basically designed a whole new approach to figuring out how we could bring together neuroscience and music in the service of finding ways to help people with all manner of things, from childhood illnesses to old age. And that's what Sound Health has turned out to be. And we now have a whole research program, $20 million worth, that has been invested in this, and much more to come.
It's so great. I mean, it's wonderful. And there are clear scientific benefits for music and arts and health. I mean, healthcare is so expensive, and people are beginning, and even the business of healthcare is beginning to think about preventative care in a more serious way. Integrative care, of course. I didn't even know there was an institute at the NIH for integrative care. It's incredible. Go to the website and check it out, because the kinds of things that have been really heavily researched and that are supported by the NIH is much broader than I had imagined. And integrative medicine and music can certainly be a major part of whole person health. I mean, the mental, emotional, physiological, and therapeutic impacts are so important, and we want to improve and restore health and create well-being rather than just treat disease. So creative arts therapies are low cost, non-invasive, and non-pharmaceutical. Why is this important now, Francis?
Well, we want to bring every possible tool to help in the way to prevent disease and to treat illness when it happens. And we're probably in a particularly exciting place scientifically to do so. At NIH, we've been investing now for a few years in the Brain Initiative, which is a very bold effort to really figure out how those 86 billion neurons between your ears do what they do and how they respond to input that's coming at you. And we are increasingly learning that music has been an important part of human experience as long as there have been humans. Your brain has a music room where musical tones are interpreted in a slightly different place than other kinds of sounds. And that wouldn't be there if it wasn't important as a means of bringing people together, as a means of mothers singing lullabies to their babies, as a means of grieving or of celebrating. Music's been there, maybe even before language was. And if that is as powerful as we all know it can be, then could we, in fact, figure out, by understanding those circuits and neurotransmitters even better, learn how we could turn the music therapy efforts into something even more effective and more person-specific. So that's a lot of what we're trying to do now with this $20 million that NIH has now invested in this sound health research program, funding 15 investigators, looking at everything from childhood development to how music can benefit people with dementia and old age. And we're delighted to see also our friends at the National Endowment for the Arts having established the Sound Health Network at the University of California, San Francisco, creating a clearinghouse there and a special network for this. And now, Renee, your foundation, working with the Foundation for NIH in something that we just launched a couple of weeks ago, aiming to see, is there a way that we could develop a real approach for doing research on music and music therapy that would have the kind of rigor that one would want to see to be sure that we understand the consequences. So yeah, say something about that.
Well, I got so excited by this work, and I've been able to see it now from both ends of the lifetime spectrum, where we have a 15-year-old who's with a 15-month-old who spent some time with us during the pandemic, and to watch him respond to music in real time at that age, which is more powerful seemingly than any other way that we can engage with him right now. So that is evolution at work. And then we've also found an aunt who had dementia could respond to music also, long past her ability to recognize the people around her. So science looking to discover why music has this power is obviously music to my ears, but I'm so thrilled that my foundation, the Renee Fleming Foundation, is partnering on this toolkit with the NIH and FNIH. Because this gives us the ability to shore up the research that exists, kind of provide, as you said, a play map and a map for doing better research in the future so that the NIH can support it and further our understanding of why these things work. And what I've also seen is an explosion of interest in this field. So NeuroArts Blueprint, which is an initiative between the Aspen Institute and Johns Hopkins, is also pushing the intersection forward. I'm a co-chair with Emmeline Edwards, who is one of our partners at the NIH. This initiative is developing a scientific field of inquiry. It's broader than music, comprising multiple art forms in the humanities and how it can establish and promote wellness. But the fact that I can be useful in this way, because basically my passion has become this intersection, and I see myself as an advocate. So I want to provide a platform wherever I travel for this message about how we can love music and it can enrich our lives. We can get tremendous enjoyment from it. But wow, guess what? Science is now proving that there are also interventions that are therapeutic, that can help us with various disorders and illnesses. It helps children as they develop, and it can help us across the lifespan. So Dr. Collins, arts and health is a good investment then, isn't it?
It is indeed. I mean, we think of arts, music and the visual arts and dance as things that lift us in our spirit, and they do. But if you want to really be an economist about this and put on your green eye shades and talk about the financial consequences, yeah, there's solid economic benefits from using music and creative arts to help people stay healthy or to help them cope with illness if it happens. So yeah, insurers and healthcare providers are getting more interested in this because of the way in which these kinds of interventions might actually save money for our very strapped healthcare system. So that's something maybe to think about in the longer term, and how this can build a whole community of researchers, healthcare providers, advisory networks. Right now, you've mentioned the NeuroArts Blueprint, which goes beyond music to other areas of artistic endeavor. NIH at the moment is focused on music, but we're certainly considering the possibility of broadening that in the future. Again, our goal, because we're a research enterprise, the largest in the world actually, is to try to be sure that we're doing our part to help generate the scientific evidence that can actually be used for clinical care guidelines, because that's generally when things start to change as far as reimbursement for this. And if you really believe that music therapy can help people with PTSD, or people who are suffering from chronic pain, or children who are struggling with learning problems, then the best way to be sure that music therapy is provided is to be sure that it's reimbursed. So that's part of our goal as well, is to be sure we generate the evidence for that so that the third-party reimbursement system will recognize this is a good thing for our community, for our society, and it's even going to save them money in the long run.
Well, there's some interesting models too for how this is being implemented in healthcare. So the UK has already begun social prescribing, and by 2023, doctors will be able to prescribe arts nationwide. This can include, playlists, dance classes, singing lessons. One of the things we've learned during the pandemic is how how much we need to be with each other, how much the social aspect of health is important. And the separation, the isolation had a terrible impact on our mental health. And mental health can impact our physical health too. So that's being understood better. So the shift towards preventative health care is a model for what we can do in the US. So I just learned that Massachusetts is developing a similar program called Culture RX to prescribe arts. They want to lower healthcare costs, currently 40% of the state budget. Arts has the potential to improve community well-being, and creative arts therapies have few negative side effects, and it's cost effective. Arts could even mitigate side effects from medications or boost efficacy of standard drug treatments. So Novartis approached me some time ago to say they wanted to do a study looking at how their drugs for MS could be improved. The trials could actually show better outcomes if with the addition of music therapy. So that's a very creative way of thinking about how we can combine these arts therapies with traditional and pharmaceutical drug treatments. So the lower cost of the intervention, plus the prevalence and growth of telehealth has made a huge difference. It does work, and when arts therapies are involved, and especially even groups can get together, which is great. So where do we think arts and health could be provided in the future?
Yeah, good question, because it sounds like wonderful opportunities, but how, in terms of the logistics, would one imagine this kind of delivery of arts therapy, music therapy will be carried forward? Do you have ideas about that?
Well, I do think that technology is providing lots of different opportunities. For instance, there are games being developed that can serve to help children with ADD and ADHD. There are various uses of AI that could really help. These are platforms that can incorporate perhaps arts and health with remote research, for instance. Researchers can definitely take advantage of this. I have an initiative with Google, and it would be really fun to try and pair with a researcher and reach 10 million people instead of the small amount of people that we generally have in a research group. So, and we've talked about at previous Lake Nona forums, the future of AI-based healthcare. My wish is that it start to appear in big box stores along with some of the other healthcare that we'll find there, whether it's the various large drugstores or any of the Walmarts who are already kind of including other services, whether it's travel or salons. And why not have an art station where people could not only utilize local artists to work with them and provide some of these services, but also researchers and music therapists, for instance. So I can imagine that this could permeate our healthcare spectrum, the entire spectrum, in a useful way, and really make a difference in people's lives.
That is a bold vision indeed. And of course, we don't want to lose the human touch. And somehow we have to figure out in the big box version and the AI version, how does this also maintain that human connection, which certainly is a critical part, I think, of how the arts and music have been able to affect us so positively. I just got to give a good shout out then to the music therapists who have been learning how to do this since about World War II, honing their craft, but not really provided with the opportunity to build that on the kind of rigorous evidence base that maybe now we could start to build, especially with all the things we're learning about neuroscience. But we're still going to need those folks with all of their experience and the ways in which they can guide this effort to make sure we're on the right track, because they are in the front lines, and they're among the many heroes we should be celebrating at this time when they've had to conduct their efforts by remote means instead of being right in the same room with people that they used to have an easy time going to see. And now it's been pretty tough, but we're going to get through that part too.
Well, I think what we're talking about and dreaming about is a situation in which all of these different moving parts work together to provide better health care for our citizens. And Francis, nobody knows how to do that better than you. You know how to get all of these big blocks to collaborate. You've just shown us that in the last 14 months. And so we're very lucky to have you on our team.
Well, it's fortunate for me to be able to work with you, Renee, in this very interesting way that's bringing together part of my personal experience, music and science, in ways that used to operate in somewhat separate spheres, and now they're all muddled together in a wonderful way that I have really benefited from. And it's been great to discover so many other people have had that same joyful reaction to the idea that we can have science and music all combined together into a research program that might really teach us some very valuable things that will help people who are otherwise looking for answers and ways to deal with whatever they're dealing with. So yeah, it's quite an adventure we are on, that is for sure. You know, I'm thinking about the fact we have this All of Us program, which is enrolling 1 million Americans in a long-term study of health and illness. And a lot of these people are currently healthy, and some of them have chronic disease. And they're making themselves very available to us as participants. They're not just research subjects. I hate that term. They are participants. They're our partners. And they answer all kinds of questionnaires. They make their electronic health records available. We're doing lots of analyses of their DNA and other kinds of biological properties. But what a great opportunity this would be also, as we begin to learn about ways that music could improve people's sense of physical health and well-being. We've got a very highly motivated group of 1 million people that would probably like to take part in trying out some of those ideas. So think about that as a future way that we could begin to test some of our conclusions. A very diverse group too. This is a group that is over 50% racial and ethnic diversity. Lots of variation also in educational status, socioeconomic status. So it's a real snapshot of the whole country. And what a great moment it might be to see whether we could take what we're learning from Sound Health and try it out on a larger scale to see how this really does work in the real world. Because, you know, NIH, we're always kind of accused of being a little bit too idealistic, a little too academic. No. We want to deal with the real world, and we want things that work in the real world.
True. And I, as you mentioned, music therapy, my favorite, I'm going to leave us with my favorite intervention called music intonation therapy, which will allow someone who's lost the ability to speak through traumatic brain injury or stroke to learn to speak again through singing. So whoever thought of that, I'm just so grateful that I have belonged to an art form that can actually really help people. So I want to thank you all for joining us today, and thank you to Gloria Caulfield. What a great set of speakers today. Francis and I enjoyed sharing our perspective on arts and healing, and we didn't think this session would be complete without a musical collaboration, which we enjoyed taping together a few weeks ago. So Stephen Foster wrote this song in 1854, first recorded on a wax disc in 1905. And it's been an anthem for better times ever since. And it's one of those songs that becomes very useful when we've gone through en masse as a group, a very difficult period, which makes it incredibly relevant now. I mean, I'd always imagined that this song was from the Depression, but it's much earlier than that, Francis. Where did you think? You always knew it was from the mid 19th century, right?
I knew it was Stephen Foster, but I hadn't really looked up to see what era he was singing or writing from. It's a song I sang as a kid because my father was a folk song collector, and this was kind of in the collection. And I didn't dream either that it went as far back. I figured, like you, it was probably from the Depression. But it talks about the difficulties faced over and over again at different times. And we've certainly been through one of those for the last 15 months.
That's right. This is Hard Times Come No More, Stephen Foster.
Let us pause in life's pleasures and count its many tears while we all sup sorrow with the poor. There's a song that will linger forever in our ears. Oh, hard times come again no more. 'Tis the song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more.
'Tis a sigh that is wafted across the troubled wave. 'Tis a wail that is heard along the shore. 'Tis a dirge that is a murmur around the lowly grave. Oh, hard times come again no more.
'Tis the song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. While we seek mirth and beauty and music light and gay, there are frail forms fainting at the door. Though their voices are silent, their pleading looks will say, oh, hard times come again no more. 'Tis the song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. Oh, hard times come again no more.
What an inspiring performance. Renee and Dr. Collins, thank you so much for sharing your musical gifts with us. It definitely takes me back to last February at the Live Impact Forum, Renee, when you sang Alleluia to our group and really brought down the house. So thank you so much for your heartfelt love of music and the arts, and we really can't wait to see what discoveries that come out of all of these initiatives. So it's been a great afternoon, and I want to thank our speakers. I think that we really nailed a number of topics that are on the hearts and mind of people, you know, in the country and in the world. Also want to thank our partners. And most of our audience. So again, really appreciate everybody that has been here in Lake Nona in the past and has enjoyed our live events, and look forward to hosting a number of new people here in November. Just a quick reminder that we are going to have a Lake Nona Impact Forum November 3rd through the 5th. And we look forward to also, in addition to our invitation-only event, we look forward to sharing some of our great content broadly and utilizing these digital platforms with Microsoft. And so we would like to ask you to get involved. So if you have any ideas, if you've been inspired by what you've heard and seen today, we'd like you to reach out to us on the email address that we have up on the screen and give us your suggestions for great topics, great speakers. If you're interested in partnering, we're interested in talking to you as well. And I would love to wish you all an incredible afternoon from beautiful Lake Nona. and we look forward to seeing you soon.